Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Bloomfield Township Board of Trustees meeting for Monday, December the 8th. If you'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone, and tonight I'll open up the first agenda item is for public comment. If you're here to comment on anything within the township, we'll give you 3 minutes at the podium to my right, your left. If you're here to discuss the issue with regard to the Enclave development at 14 Telegraph, there'll be a public hearing, which is item number 3, which you can comment at that time. And so I'll welcome, and if you just introduce your name and address and state of 3 minutes, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Frances Martins, 7479 Cathedral. I'll speak later, but I wanted you guys to know that I think Bloomfield Township is phenomenal. I really do. The people, whether it's the building inspectors, everybody always complains. Nobody ever compliments. But the building inspectors, everybody, Sean in the clerk's office, Mario, I can't say enough about him. So I just wanted you to know that you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, if there's no more further comment, I'll close public comment. And item number 2 is consider the consent agenda, and it's open it up for discussion or a motion.
I'd like to remove item B.
Item B, okay, thank you, Mark. Can we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve?
Support. Support?
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Thank you. So, Mark, we'll move that to item number 8 or 7A, we'll call it, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
That's great.
Okay, and then we'll open up item number 3 for the public hearing. Consider approval of a site plan and special land use for the Mobil gas station at 43003 Woodward Avenue, presented by our Director of PBO, Andrea Bibby. Welcome, Andrea.
Hi, good evening, Board. Thank you very much. So my first presentation this evening is for a site plan and special land use request located at 43003 Woodward Avenue. Okay, so the request you have before you is on behalf of the applicant, Michigan Fuels, Inc., is seeking approval for a special land use to allow for the sales of packaged alcohol beverages, beer and wine and liquor, at the existing Mobil gas station. You can see highlighted on your screen, this is at the northwest corner of Square Lake and Woodward through our commercial corridor, and it is in the just north of Square Lake Road. It is that area that's designated as B3, which is our general business classification. I do want to note that the request that has come before you does comply with the criteria of the recently adopted ordinance amendment to allow for liquor sales at gas stations. There was a site plan application and approval back in it was 2022 that the property owner had come to the township and at that time received approval for a brand new gas station at location. And after further review, the request that's come before you, there are no site changes proposed. There's no landscaping changes. As many of you are familiar with the new building that has recently been constructed. So this is there's no site changes. The request before you is because the use of selling alcohol at a gas station is considered a special land use, thus does require approval from the Township Board. I do want to note that within that, the ordinance amendment that was adopted back in November 11th of 2024, so far to date, we have had one other gas station that has been approved for alcohol sales, and they've been up and running for about 6 months now. We've had no issues, so I'm happy to report that that's been running smoothly. And I just want to note that the criteria of that ordinance does require a minimum land area, building area, and zoning classification. In this instance, the B3 classification does comply, as well as the square footage of the property and building as required within the provisions of that adopted ordinance. As we review any special land uses, we do consider those criteria as listed under section 42, 6.2 of our ordinances. That it considers special land uses, and then based on the request that's being submitted, we don't see that there's going to be any additional impact to adjacent properties, whether it's through noise, or odor, lights, aesthetics, site changes. This is in a commercial area, and we don't see that this special land use would provide for any impact to those adjacent properties. So therefore, we do feel like it is consistent and does comply with the requirements of the special land use review. I'd also want to note that this was reviewed by our various departments. Our fire department and police department did have a chance to review and comment, noting that they don't have any issues or concerns with the proposal, as well as there's no objections from engineering and environmental services, because as I stated before, this is solely a request for them to have a liquor license. This did go before the design review board, and it was reviewed and recommended for to be forwarded on to the planning commission at the November 25th, 2025 meeting. This did also have an opportunity to go before our planning commission on November 17th, 2025, and at that time, there was a motion to forward the request onto the township board, citing that the application did meet all the criteria within the ordinance pertaining to alcohol sales. And with that, I will note that the applicant has made submittal to the township for their local local liquor license permit. So they are in the process of having that has been submitted and reviewed. And with that, I would take any questions, and I can certainly, if you refer back to your township board packet, I have asked under what considerations the board would consider approving this request. And I've noted that we would ask for compliance with the requirements noted by township departments, and then also the execution of the township liquor license agreement with the township. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Well, Andrea, I'll tell you what, since it's a public hearing, why don't we open up the public hearing
Sure.
first, and then we'll have questions from the board. So if you're here to comment on the item number 3, the consideration of approval for a liquor license for the Mobil gas station, now is your chance to come up to the podium, and we'll ask you to keep your comments at 3 minutes. Okay, looks like we'll close public comment, and now we can open it up for questions from the board.
I have a question. Prior to this, or currently, they have a convenience store. Has that been open 24 hours, or are they asking for 24-hour permission? Because I know in general, we aren't 24-hour
The site plan for the
businesses.
service station and convenience store was approved by the township board on June 13, 2022 as a special land use for 24-hour operation. I do know we have the operator here if we have specific questions related to the hours, but I do want to note that on record that they were approved previously for a 24-hour service.
Right, I guess what I was looking for is the 24-hour new, is that part of the approval? And also, are alcohol sales 24 hours, or is that regulated like, like in bars, 2 a.m. they stop? Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Ghaffari, and I'm the owner of the mobile station at Square Lake in Woodward. By state law, you only could sell alcohol from 7 a.m. to 2 a.m.
That's what I was looking for. That's what I
Yep,
thought.
and we'll follow those rules.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions from the board?
I was wondering if Mr. Ghaffari has any other operations in the area?
Yes, I do, and currently we own and operate the mobile Tim Hortons in Birmingham and a split of Old Woodward and New Woodward. Also, we do sell alcohol, and thankfully, we have very good record with the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. As well, we operate and own the one in Auburn Hills off of the corner of Updike and South Boulevard, and also we do sell alcohol as well in that location.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ghaffari.
You're very welcome.
There's no other questions?
One quick question. Do you have a recollection, Andrea, about whether there was a limitation on the hours of liquor sales beyond state law as it related to the gas station and Maple and Telegraph?
No, there was not. We did not have any time references other than their regular hours of operation and what's allowed by the liquor control. We don't have anything within our ordinance talking about hours of distribution.
Thank you.
Okay. Make a motion that we approve as presented for this, for the mobile gas station.
Support.
Support, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Good luck, Mr. Kafari. Item number 4, public hearing. Consider approval of the lot split amended site plan request for the Temple Bethel 7400 Telegraph Road, as well as item number B, consider approval for a site plan request for the Enclave residential development 7400 through 7200 Telegraph Road. Welcome back, Andrea Bibby.
Hi. Okay. Let's see. So I have a rather brief presentation, but I also know that the developer also has a presentation that they're planning on presenting as well. Okay, so the proposal you have before you is a request on behalf of Robertson Brothers as well as in conjunction with Temple Bethel. The request before you this evening is based on an application that the township received on October 29th, 2024, in which Robertson Brothers is requesting, as you can see highlighted on your screen, it is the existing configuration of the Temple Bethel property. You can notice on the left-hand side and the right-hand side on the aerial and zoning map that the property is zoned R1, single-family residential. And I also want to note that there are 2 existing vacant parcels that exist immediately to the north of the Temple property. As part of the request before you this evening is the applicant is seeking to develop a 35-unit, single-family dwelling unit to the north of Temple Bethel. As part of this request, the consideration for a lot reconfiguration as it pertains to on the existing configuration noted as Exhibit B on your left-hand side. And I do have to make a correction in my staff report because I did note that I wanted to note that the parcel that's immediately to the north, noted as Parcel 1, is approximately 3.64 acres. And then the typo in the staff report that I picked up prior to this meeting is that the property that exists immediately south of Parcel 1, it's noted in your staff report as 3.64 as well. That property is actually slightly larger at 5.4. So I just want to, for a point of clarification. So as a request before you, the applicant is seeking to consolidate the 2 existing parcels, 1 and 2 on your left-hand side to end up in a final configuration of the Exhibit D on the right-hand screen. As part of that reconfiguration, the applicant is seeking to take approximately 4. They're looking to take approximately 8.2 acres from the existing Temple Bethel property and to combine it with the 2 properties to the north to create the final layout, which you can see provided on the right-hand side. I do want to note within our lot split ordinance, there has been a lot of discussion regarding the requirements and the provisions of that general ordinance. And I just wanted to point out that in this instance, the definitions as stated under that Chapter 18 states that a division does not include a property transfer between 2 or more adjacent parcels. If the property taken from one parcel, in this instance the Temple, and is added to an adjacent parcel, in this instance those existing parcels immediate to the north, and any resulting parcels shall be considered a building site, and the parcel conforms to the requirements of the Land Division Act or the requirements of the applicable local ordinance. So essentially what this says is because we are not creating a newly single buildable lot, but instead there's a portion being conveyed, if you will, to adjacent parcels to the north. Our lot split ordinance doesn't exempts this type of adjacent exchange of property to not be considered a lot split in compliance with, that's under Section 18.229, definitions of Chapter 18. So just wanted a point of clarification there. Therefore, the discussion that has occurred in the past regarding meeting the average lot width in lot area of properties within 500 feet, that is defined by if you are actually creating a new buildable parcel to be a standalone buildable lot. So that is the criteria that we look at generally when I'm looking at a lot split of a residential. But in this instance, the ordinance clearly states due to the transfer between adjacent parcels that is not a criteria that we would consider. So just noting that the result of this configuration, anytime we have lot line changes, lot line amendments, we have to look at the impact of all of those affected properties. So the way that we do that is we did have the applicant provide us with an amended site plan showing us what the impacts are to the remaining Temple Bethel site. And I do want to note that upon review, in accordance with our ordinance as it relates to places of worship, in this instance, that's the criteria that we would have to consider. I do want to note that the resultant parcel does comply with those provisions in terms of the resultant setbacks. In this instance, are still adequate, even though the northerly setback is going to be lessened due to the new lot configuration, that the required setback does still comply. The required setback for a place of worship is 1.5 the height of the existing building. In this instance, the temple building is actually 79.8 feet. 1.5 of that would be 119 feet. The resulting setback to that northerly lot line, it's required to be 119 feet, and what is happening after the configuration is 376 feet. So they clearly meet the required setbacks, and that is the only lot line that's changing as part of the overall site plan. So in regards to the temple site plan, I do want to note that it does comply. The applicant is proposing a very densely vegetated screening that is required to shield automobile lights that have to be screened from the residential view, which in this instance, the residential views that we'll be talking in the next phase has to do with the Enclave development. So with that, I just want to kind of give a high level look in terms of what the changes are to the temple site, and then also want to note that they are proposing some additional vegetation and landscaping, both along the Telegraph Road frontage as well as that dense green belt that I stated to the north of their property. One result of this lot line change would be that the temple will lose some existing sports courts that they have in that location. So now moving on to the actual site plan for the Enclave residential development. So as I stated, back in October 2024, Robertson Brothers, in conjunction with the temple, submitted a site plan for a one-family residential cluster option for a total of 38 single-family, single-story residential units. The application had been reviewed by the Design Review Board, the Planning Commission, and they also received approval by the Wetland Board on August 4th, 2025. They also received approval by the Zoning Board of Appeals on September 30th, 2025. I do want to note that since the original submittal that was made in October of 2024, based on numerous meetings with adjacent homeowners, property owners, as well as working with the township and the developer, the applicant has revised their plan to the current configuration that you see before you. As a result of their zoning board hearing, they have provided an increase from 10, well, actually, I'm sorry, this is related to the Planning Commission. I go back. As a result from input from the Planning Commission, the applicant has revised the exterior buffer to both the north and to the west of this development to include, originally, the proposal was for 10 to 12-foot evergreen plantings within the green belt along the northerly and westerly lot line. That has been amended, and now those evergreens are noted to be a minimum of 14 feet at the time of installation. That was a condition that was asked of the Planning Commission. Secondly, another discussion was originally the berm elevation that was provided from Telegraph Road was 5 feet. And then discussions and feedback through the various boards and Planning Commission, the applicant was directed at that time and was advised to try to match the berm that's located in front of the Bloomfield Chase development. After further research and after the applicant was able to investigate their site as well as the Bloomfield Chase site, they came back with a berm that is 8 feet tall, and that they were able to increase it from the 5 feet. They have expressed, and I'm sure they can expand upon this when they have an opportunity to present, that there is a challenge as it relates to creating a 10-foot berm, as that the grading would have to expand even further into the Telegraph Road right-of-way. They're already going to be grading within the right-of-way of Telegraph Road to create the 8-foot berm. And then I also want to note that there does appear that on the Bloomfield Chase berm, that there are 8-foot points with some 10-foot points along that berm. So I just wanted to share that at this point, the applicant has increased to an 8-foot berm from Telegraph Road. And that will also include the vegetative screening, as you can see highlighted on the screen, to help further shield that view with evergreen plantings. I also want to note that there was a reduction at the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. The original application was for 38 units. The applicant has since revised their plan to include 35 units. And then lastly, another change that occurred at the zoning board was in regards to their request to have building separation of 14 feet. There was a motion by the zoning board for them to increase the building separations on lots 1 through 18 to a 20-foot building separation. So that was another modification that was made. So in addition to the housing, site improvements for the Enclave development include a new detention pond. As you can see, that would be in the lower right-hand corner of the site plan up on the screen. That is not only to service the required stormwater detention, it is also being mitigated to include some wetland mitigation. There are some existing wetlands that are existing on this site. There was a submittal by the applicant and a review by Niswander Environmental, who is the township's wetland consultant. After a very thorough review and presentation to the wetland board did approve the proposal as presented to include mitigation as well as to include around the detention basin, which includes a variety of native plugs planting, as well as a maintenance schedule in order to ensure that detention basin over the appropriate period of time is being watched and modified by our wetland consultant to determine and to make sure, because it takes time for the invasive species to let the native species take over, and there is some environmental science that is involved with that. So that's also something, a condition in which the applicant has accepted, is that there will be a maintenance requirement for a period of time in order to make sure that is developed and does come into fruition the way that it has been presented. So I just want to note that the underlying zoning for this property is R1, which is single-family residential. Our master plan does consider this area to be continued to be a residential in nature, so we're not departing from the master plan in the sense that this is still a residential development. I just want to speak, this is also showing you the landscape plan. The applicant did make a submittal of a landscape plan that was reviewed and approved satisfactory by our landscape architect. The applicant was granted a variance as they were unable to, or they had a challenge or a difficulty in being able to achieve the caliper replacement of trees on the site. The Zoning Board of Appeals did grant a variance for a caliper amount to be less than what is required. I do want to note, though, that there still will be a requirement of payment to the Woodland Fund on behalf of the applicant. And I also want to note that there has been discussions, and this will be for the developer to further discuss. There has been some discussions with adjacent neighbors in regards to assisting with some plantings on their individual property, but that would be an agreement that would occur between the developer and the applicant themselves. So moving on, in terms of our review for the single-family cluster housing development, I do want to note that there is one access point that is proposed off Telegraph Road. The application will be seeking to have a taper lane, and that would require and that is a recommendation from MDOT, and that would certainly require a permit from MDOT in order for them to for that configuration. I do want to note that the applicant has provided that each home will be fire suppressed. Therefore, our fire marshal is able to then determine that one single point of access off Telegraph Road with the suppression does meet the requirement in terms of fire safety and ensuring that. So he did review and approve the configuration as shown. Each resident that's residence that's being proposed is, as I stated, single story. I do want to note that they will have a 2-car garage, and the median height does come in under the allowed 2.5 stories in the R1 district. So this is actually the product that is being proposed is a slightly lower elevation than probably a standard 2.5-story home that you would see in a typical development around the township. You do have a pretty good overview in terms of the provisions within the residential cluster option standards, section 3.8. I've pretty much drawn it out very clearly in terms of what is permitted by ordinance, as well as what variances were granted and sought by the applicant. That has all been highlighted within your staff report. There is quite a bit of information in here. I would be more than happy to expand upon or answer any questions related to the site layout. Again, I do know that there will be another presentation forthcoming. I do want to note that this proposal has received sign-off and endorsement of approval from our various township departments. That includes engineering and environmental services. We also had it reviewed by HRC, our engineering consultant, in which they also supported the plan as submitted. Michael Duell Associates, our landscape architect, has also reviewed the proposal and does not have any concerns. They do note that there will be, again, as I stated earlier, there will be a requirement to pay within that the tree fund related to the limited amount of caliper replacement. I stated that it has been reviewed by our environmental consultant as it relates to the wetlands on site, and that was approved by the wetland board. And then also the applicant submitted a sound study, a traffic study. That traffic study was reviewed by our Fishbeck, our traffic engineer, in noting that the peak hours that were taken on weekday mornings and weekday trips, that the proposal is suggested to add approximately 414 weekday trips onto Telegraph Road, and they don't feel that that is a significant impact to the Telegraph Road drive, or not even drive, sorry, the Telegraph Road thoroughfare. So that has been reviewed accordingly as well. With that, I can answer any questions. I know that there are some directives or recommendations, I should say, in the back of your packet as relates to the various considerations in which the board is looking at this evening. We're looking at the lot split of the Temple Bethel to convey 4.23 acres from the Temple Bethel property. Number 2 would be consideration of the amended Temple Bethel site plan. And then lastly, the consideration of the Enclave development as a whole. So there are 3 considerations and motions in which we're asking the board to consider this evening. And with that, I am more than happy to answer any questions regarding the proposal, if there's anything in particular in which the board would like to have more
Okay,
information
thank
on.
you, Andrea. We'll
Yeah.
hold off any questions for you, and then
Perfect.
maybe invite the applicant up to, I think he may have a statement to make. Tim, if you will introduce yourself.
And you can just go through here. Okay? Yep.
Of course, thank you very much. Tim Lochran, the Vice President of Land Acquisition for Robertson Brothers Homes. With me tonight, we have a few members of our team, including Paul Robertson and Jim Clark. Been stalwarts of Bloomfield for, I've been told, about 50 years we've been here in the township, so we're happy to be here. We've also built a lot over the years in the township, including the Adams Woods, obviously, and the Heathers. So we're very familiar, and we've been here quite a long time. I'd love to go through a quick presentation, if that's okay with you, and then obviously I'm open for any questions you have. So again, we have built a number of developments over the years, Bloomfield, and like I said, we're right there on Telegraph, not too far, actually, across the street from the site that we're talking about. And we've been there probably 35 years, but we've been all around the township for quite some time before that. The last community we built was the Villas of Bloomfield Grove. You may remember that on Losser, just south of Square Lake. Beautiful project. I think it came together very well. We appreciate the support we've had from the township on that development. The reason we're here tonight is because we had a lot of people that came into that neighborhood, that community, and they just really, they wanted to stay in Bloomfield Township. They wanted to sell their colonial and stay where they could be next to their neighbors, their churches, their restaurants, but they just couldn't afford the price point. Those homes were, $1.5 million. Some of them went over $2 million. That's a kind of rarefied air, if you will. So we knew that there would be a lot of demand, that there's really a need in your community for this type of housing. We're talking about ranch, first floor master housing. And you're not alone. Every community in Southeast Michigan, that's really what is driving growth. It's people that are downsizing and moving out, and they don't have a place to go. You're losing people to other communities. We're building in West Bloomfield, and people are coming there because you don't have the opportunity here. We feel this is a great opportunity. There's not much land in the township. We know this, and we think this is a great opportunity to have that type at a more affordable price. Now, it'll still be expensive, obviously, but it's something that is a need in your community, and this would be an ideal site for it. And regardless of this being in Bloomfield, we just, it's very important to us that we stand by our product and by our communities. So what we're going to show you is something that's just Robertson brand. We spent a great deal of time working with you, working with the neighborhood. I'll kind of go into the detail on that quite a bit. And we really did that to bridge a needed home product in your community, as well as the neighborhood concerns, which I know you're going to hear from them as well. My hope is to show you that we've done that. So if I can start, I'd appreciate it. Just from a site context, I think everybody's very, very familiar with where this is at. So you can see the blue area, that's the temple. That's basically the northwest corner of 14 Mile and Telegraph. As Andrea had pointed out, we are purchasing a portion of the land from the temple. One of the parcels is from an individual property owner that's owned it for decades. There was a house on the property at one point long ago. So that's the temple is to the south of us. And then really it's just what you see along Telegraph. There's a lot of density along Telegraph, including this area. Obviously, this is the southern portion of the township. There's quite a bit of multifamily. There's apartments to the south, or to the east of the site, to the north of the site. That little purple area, that's actually where our office is. So we're very well familiar with the site. And it's just kind of indicative of, I don't need to tell you, but all of the density and intensity that you see all up and down Telegraph. So from our perspective, this really could be a site that screams for higher density, if you will. We're not proposing that. But I think there could be an argument that could be very easily made that this could be something of a more intense use that could come here. We feel this is the product that you really need in your community, and this is what we have spent a lot of time working on. So moving on to the site plan, and this is different than what we were even here at the ZBA. This is a different plan based on the feedback, and this has really been an evolution over time from all of the meetings we've had with the neighbors, with all of the different reviewing agencies and the approval bodies. I'll just point out a couple of things here. First of all, what you can see are the setbacks are quite a bit from the existing property lines, more so than what R1 would allow. So R1 allows a 35-foot rear setback. We're actually 55-foot. So that's quite a bit of increased setbacks from what an R1 would allow. In fact, the neighbors to the north and to the west, a lot of those, most of those are around 35 to 40 foot from the property line. So we're going to be farther from the existing homes that are there. And we did that intentionally. We wanted to bring, and that was actually the reason why we had asked for some of the variances, to bring those buildings closer and into the site away from the perimeters to allow a little bit more relaxation. And that has evolved over time. Originally, when we first started working on this, we were closer to the, it's actually 40 foot if you use a cluster ordinance, a site plan cluster, but the R1 does allow for 35-foot rear setback, so that would be by right. So that's one thing that's important. Those little white boxes, those would be the decks. Those would not be a covered deck or anything like that. Those would just be decks, so that wouldn't be part of the building per se. The other thing I think you'd notice is the buffer. So that's something that's been really evolving over time and something that's very important. It's something we've heard a lot from the neighbors. We've tried our best with this, and I'll show you some evolution on that. But what you're seeing right now is a buffer, essentially double row of plantings, and we have agreed as far as from the Planning Commission to upsize those to 14 foot. Originally, those were actually 8 foot when we first came in, and it was a kind of like more of a staggered. We're proposing 14-foot trees, which are actually pretty hard to find. We're also proposing to put those in early, so we're already working on sourcing those because that's important to be able to make sure we can do that. So that's going to provide a lot of buffer from our neighbors, and certainly something that I know that's been important to them. Another thing to point out would be the berm along Telegraph. Andrea, I think, did a good job of kind of explaining that. Originally, we were 5 foot. That is the requirement for a one-family cluster, 5 foot. And that's why we came in and proposed that. Over time, that's been upsized to 8 foot. We had to do some, engineering gymnastics in order to do that, but we were able to get an 8-foot berm. And you can see we've also got a number of trees, double row of trees there as well, deciduous and evergreen along the frontage as well. So it provides quite a bit of buffer from Telegraph as well. But again, 8 foot is what we're able to work out on the site. And the berms that Andrea talked about, if you go down the street, as the one you'd mentioned, Bloomfield Chase, I mean, some of that tails down to like 3 or 4 feet. So it does vary quite a bit. And part of the reason why it gets so big on Bloomfield Chase is because Telegraph does, if you've gone up there, you'll see it does go lower in grade, which is the reason why that berm keeps getting taller. So we don't have that. We're basically flat along Telegraph. There's no opportunity really to build that up. And if you actually drive, like from my office here, there's quite a bit of berms along Telegraph. That's when the road gets really low through, Telegraph gets low through that area. So those are naturally going to be higher berms. But we've done our best to be able to get 8 foot here, and of course landscape it, as I mentioned as well. As far as access, there is one point of access. We will be sprinklering. It's not something we typically do. It's not something we want to do. But we were really only able to get one point of access. We certainly weren't going to go through the neighborhood, and the temple was very keen on not having another entrance. They are all about security. They'll speak tonight. It's important for them for a project like this where it provides that security and not the connection. So we really knew we'd have one point of connection on Telegraph, and so we have agreed to sprinkle them to meet fire requirements. The pond at the southeast corner is oversized. That's larger than what a pond would normally be. based on the CFS rate of the site. And the reason why is because it also serves as a wetland mitigation. So there were wetlands on site, and I'll get to this in a second, but those were not Eagle regulated, and we worked with your consultant quite a bit to basically mitigate, do on-site mitigation as part of the storm pond. So it's very unique. It's got a lot of different plantings. It'll be a wet pond, but it will be something that's somewhat of amenity, but also meeting the wetland requirements. But again, they were not Eagle regulated. We have full approvals for that from the wetland board for that. And then the other thing that I want to point out, and I'll get to this in the elevations, but these are ranch style single story homes. And that's really important because not only are we 55 feet away from the property line, and we're actually lower in most cases, they're single story, so they're not going to be imposing whatsoever. Whereas right now somebody could build a 2-story house, 35 foot, right to the property line. So we think that's important that we're able to move that off of the property line. So move on just a little bit here. This really is just showing you some of the details that we've had planned out. If you recall, our Villas of Bloomfield Grove was probably a lot more traditional than what we're proposing here. We think this is a site that could be a little bit more modern, but still have those kind of rich textures and details, hardy board, things, brick, stone, really to bring those elements out. So it is similar to the types of plans that we built at Villas of Bloomfield Grove, but these are smaller. And we did that intentionally. We did that to bring that price point down because that's really important to us. So still functions the same, 2-bedroom, actually 2-bedroom, and a den. And the master obviously is pretty well appointed. This is how people want to live. We are actually selling one plan, which sounds kind of crazy, but this is the plan that people that are downsizing your community want to have. So a lot of times they'll finish out the basement to get a couple bedrooms down there, or just livable space. But this really is, this speaks to those buyers for sure. And then just from a plan evolution, and I can show you several other variations as well, but I thought these were important. I know it's really hard to see from where you're at. But when we started out, after we met with the neighborhood the first time, we had 38 units, which, by the way, is what the parallel plan does allow for. We had a staggered 8-foot tall tree buffer, which is frankly more than we typically would have done. So we were already kind of going in there with what we thought was a good buffer, and certainly met the requirements of the township. And then a 5-foot berm along Telegraph, which again was the requirement. Subsequently, the one in the middle is essentially what got approved by the Planning Commission. Still 38 units, double row of 14-foot tall tree buffer, like I'd mentioned, and then an 8-foot berm along Telegraph. The one on the right is what we're asking for approval tonight. This is the one that's been essentially approved by the ZBA, where we'd lost a few units, but that really opened up the site quite a bit. We think this actually feels better. This is something that I think was an improvement, and it's been an improvement throughout as we've gone through. But this is 35 units, still have the double row of trees, still the 8-foot berm, but now we've got more setbacks. If you see in the corner there, that northwest corner, really we're able to move a lot of units off. And I think that was kind of a pain point. All those homes were right up against on the northwest corner of the site. We were able to pull those back by losing those 3 units and spreading out that entire stretch along where the residents are on the north and western perimeter. We stretched them up from 14 foot to 20 foot, and you can just kind of see, it's hard to see in this size, but it really creates a lot more space in between. That's more unit separation, plus we're able to save 6 trees that we didn't have before, and that would be in the northwest corner. And then we've also committed to install those trees early, as I mentioned, and I'll get into some of the neighbor conversations as well. So project approvals, Andrea had mentioned this, we do have approval from those boards there. And I just want to go over some concerns we've had, because I think it'll demonstrate just kind of the level of detail we've tried to commit here, and I think a lot of you have heard a lot of this, but it's important to bring it back up again. So I talked about the buffering. That's really continued to expand from where we started. It's just not only the height, but also the number of plantings I think I'm just off the cuff, I think there's well over 100, 150 all along that stretch, which of course is more than what the requirement is, but it's something that's been very important to the neighborhood from the start. And I think overall, they're fairly happy with what we're proposing, at least for the buffer. We've also heard capacity of community infrastructure, concerns about that. Really, there isn't any, and I'm going to say that because all the departments have conditionally approved. So there's no issues with infrastructure, water, sewer, storm, anything like that, fire. So that really is not a concern. We're able to demonstrate that. High water table, agreed. There is a high water table in certain areas on the site. We know this because we went out there, we did test pits. And it will be difficult to work through, but we've done it before. We've dealt with much worse. We're not afraid of it whatsoever. So it's good we know about it. The neighborhood certainly brought that to our attention, but it's something that we're experienced with working with. There was a question early on, and it might still continue to be a question, although I think we've kind of really proven it. There's been concern about stormwater running off to the surrounding neighborhood, and I think a lot of that is just because right now there are a lot of stormwater concerns in that neighborhood, Birmingham Farms, and we actually had, at their request, done a drainage study that really focused on why there are issues there. We are lower than them. There's no way that water is going to go upstream. In fact, we're taking on a lot of their water. It's one of the reasons why our pond is bigger than what it should be as well. We're lower than them, so we're not going to contribute negatively to the stormwater. But we did do that drainage study, and I hope that they'll kind of use that to pinpoint some areas to improve some of the. I mean, it's been there for 50 years or so, probably 60 years. Many of those homes, and it just kind of needs to have the maintenance that this report that we commissioned pointed out. But again, as far as having stormwater run off to the neighboring properties, that's a non-issue. And Brad Brickle from Nowak and Frost would be more than happy to explain that in detail if anybody wants to hear about it. I don't think anybody does, Brad, but the wetland permits, so there was some concerns early on about the wetland permits. Again, they were not Eagle regulated, and we have received all of our wetland permits. So I believe that's a non-issue at this point, but I'm happy to kind of discuss it further. The consultants were happy with what we proposed, so was the wetland board. We did have some tree variances. We had some variances, as I think Andrea did a really good job of pointing out. Oh, Andrea's there. Really good job of pointing out. And we're actually putting in considerably more trees than we're taking out. Obviously, a lot of the ones that are there are bigger, but just to put that in perspective, I think it's 644, and that's 284 more than what is actually on the parcel right now. But we did go through the exercise of getting our variances approved, including for the trees. Density, we've heard that a lot. Density seems to be one of the hot buttons. I would argue that 2.7 units per acre, 3-4 units per acre even, that's probably too low for that location, to be honest. We're proposing it because we think this is a needed product and something that's important for your community. But I don't, from a planning perspective, less than 3 units per acre on a major arterial street like Telegraph is an extremely low density overall. So what we've really focused on is how do we buffer our plans from the existing neighbors. And I think we've gotten to that point. From a density standpoint, we're really not that much more than what the existing Birmingham Farms is. They're at 2.25 units per acre. So from our perspective, we think, especially where we're at now with 35 units, that certainly is an appropriate density, if not, should be higher in several respects. But fire access is another thing we've heard. A fire has signed off on it. There is that one point of access as long as we fire suppress. So that's what we're doing with fire access. Unit spacing has always been a comment, a concern from the neighbors and from the township. And I think with the last iteration from the ZBA going from 14 foot to 20 foot along the perimeter, that does free it up quite a bit. I think that is an improvement, just visually speaking. And so, I think from a unit spacing perspective, 20 foot Typically, we build these around 15-foot separation, so this is more than what we would typically do, and I think that's an improvement to the plan. And then Telegraph Road, we know Telegraph Road. I've known it for 12 years. Robertson, Paul, you've known it for 50 years. We know it's there. We're going to have no impact to it from a traffic perspective. We know we're going to have impact from it, and that's what we've tried to buffer as well. But it's there. We know it. Again, there's not many parcels that are left, and it's just a condition of the site that we know we have to deal with. So I'm going to go. I know I've spoken a lot already. I'll try to speed this along. But we think there's a lot of justification for the project, obviously. We wouldn't be here if we didn't. We think it's a very important site for the community. It's an important site for us. It's across from our office. The community will have 35 new for-sale, detached, single-story condominiums. And really, what we could build there is attached. We want to do detached because that's what people want to buy. In fact, we've had projects where we've had attached, and we've gone in and we've done amendments to detach it because that's what people want to buy. That's kind of led us to some of these unit separation concerns and things like that. But it's very important to have a detached condominium, especially at price points where we're going to be at. They're not as high as Bloomfield Grove, but it's still going to be an expensive site just because land development and home building is expensive. You have a growing demand for high-quality age-targeted housing. You do. Every community does. This is a way to capture those people. I don't think we'll have any problems. Even though we're right off Telegraph, I don't think we'll have any problems selling because people want to be in your community and stay there and sell their colonials to somebody else that then has kids and put them through the school system, which obviously you have a great school system. So that's really the intent, and that's something that I think you will see with this project. And it's really tailored to people downsizing and staying in your community. I mentioned this. I don't have a plan of it, but I know Andrea does. But the parallel plan would allow for 38 attached units. And that would be, those could go to 40 foot to the property line. That is what's allowed in the one cluster family zoning district. The proposal, as I mentioned, we maximize the buffer areas. It's a much-needed housing option. That alone, I think, is just enough justification. The other thing is we have historically accepted stormwater from the adjacent neighborhood, and their low-quality wetlands existed because of all that. What we're doing is we're kind of reinstituting it, still accepting that water, and I think managing it in a much better way. And I know your wetland consultant and your engineers feel the same way. Significant amount of low quality and invasive trees are on the property. In fact, that was one of our variances because of the invasive trees that are on there. And as I mentioned, we're proposing more trees than what currently exists. It's impacted by Telegraph Road. I talked about that, but it's less dense, less intense than really most other uses along the corridor. It's even less intense than a lot of the developments that are similar to what we're proposing. We think it's a logical and appropriate transitional land use from the higher intensity apartments across the street, from the temple to the south, and to the single family, which are also detached around us. And it'll be a much safer and more secure environment, not just for the temple, but also for the neighborhood as well. It'll have eyes on the street, if you will, and that's something that's, I know, really important to the temple, but I think it's important for everybody there. You know, anybody can go there and do anything they want on the site right now, and we're going to make it a lot safer. And then the last one is it really has been vetted by staff. It's been vetted by all the reviewing bodies that we've been in front of here. So you've seen an evolution to what it is today. It's been improved along the way, and we've reduced density and added buffering, which I think just speaks to the process that you have here at the township. So
Okay, thank you, Tim. We'll open up to the board if they have any questions for Tim, and then we'll open up to the public for comments. Any questions for Tim?
I have questions. So I know we talked about the pond, but I have a real concern with the fact that the driveway cuts that corner. And I brought that up at a meeting last week, and my understanding is that the temple wanted to keep that driveway. And that's nice, and I know curb cuts are a big deal, but if you were to move the access to that rear parking lot, and I'm very familiar with that driveway, I've driven it, more in line with where the property ends, you could pick up space in that corner, you could push your wetland pond deeper back, you could have more room for trees, you could take some of the density issues, you could ease the whole situation if you made a little bit more use of that property. And I guess just for moving a driveway, I don't understand why that hasn't been considered. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yes, you are correct. The temple was very adamant that they did not want to lose an access off of Telegraph. Now, I think what you're saying is move it to the south and then have more like a 90-degree turn on there.
Well, it could still be, it could come in mid-parking lot. I understand that lets you slow down and come off Telegraph. Like I said, I've driven it, but it doesn't have to cut the corner. I mean, you're doing a lot split to cut that angle, reduce, and honestly, that density's an issue with this. That's the thing we hear most of all from residents. And it's like for moving a driveway down, move the curb cut. I know that's a MDOT, but you're not creating a second one. You could close that. You could move the pond in there. You could ease back. I have concerns about the length of the driveways, that many of these are barely 20 feet. And so I Googled, 20 feet either to the road, and some of them are 20 feet to the sidewalk. And I know you can't block a sidewalk, and you don't want cars sticking out into the road. And so I Googled, SUV size, and it comes out about 18 and a half feet, the bigger SUVs, which are very popular. Some as big as just over 19. That doesn't give you much room to not kiss the garage door or have the tail of your car sticking in the roadway. And you are proposing this as more of a senior residence. There's very little space between the units. Last week I asked, what about parking on the street? What about Thanksgiving, football Sunday? Your driveway's going to fill up very quickly. If these are seniors, I know I'm starting to get grandchildren and family coming over very often. So you need a little space. There's very little street parking, and then what happens with the fire trucks? So I asked that question, and it has not been addressed. And just this morning, I found out that the fire department is okay with them being able to access the site, because that's huge, that's safety, with parking on one side of the road. But that hasn't even been talked about. You're gonna have to have signage, because people are gonna park all over the place, and there's gonna be an emergency. And one driveway access, and it's a crowded little community. I'm sure it's beautiful, but I have had more phone calls and emails from residents, and density is one of the biggest things. I went and I looked at the measurements for all of these driveways. They are the minimum. I know you pushed the homes forward to try and give space in the rear, courtesy to the neighbors, but it seems like we need to reduce some more of the density. That, you guys picked 38 units, now it's 35, but it didn't have to be 30 units. I mean, you did a very nice presentation, but when you said I did the best I could, no, the best we could is to not have so many variances. So I have a problem with that.
Any other questions?
I
Chris?
just have one question back to the berms, because I brought that up at the planning commission, to be like Bloomfield Chase, and certainly gave an engineering reason why you've been able to take it up to 8.
Yes.
As far as you still have 14 feet of trees on there, on the berm. How is it going to be landscaped?
The height?
Yes.
So at this point, the only trees that we've have proposed going to 14 foot would be the north and western perimeter. As you know, we've got we still have a potential deficiency that we could pay into a tree fund. Our intent would be to upsize trees in order to not have to pay into the tree fund to some degree, similar to what we did at Bloomfield Grove. So if it's important, we could look at maybe upsizing those trees along Telegraph to to 14 foot as well.
Yeah, I was thinking, a couple of things you brought up, Bloomfield Grove, because I certainly recall how that was handled.
Yes.
And if there were additional trees included on the west and on the north perimeter for some of the homeowners, currently, what, is it going to be 3 per homeowner, or?
Yeah, so you're talking about the agreement we made
Yes.
verbally, yeah, so with the neighborhood. And I'm happy to put it on the record here. We have agreed to, for the homes that are backing to our property, to either put 3 trees on their property, because we really can't fit anymore, obviously, where we have the perimeter trees. But it's also important to have it on their property because it adds that buffer closer to their house. We've offered to put 3 trees on each of their properties if they so desire. Or, and this is probably more what would happen, is a payment in lieu. So we typically, our cost is about $600 to install a tree. So it would be, basically a payment in lieu of $1,800 for each homeowner. We just want to make sure they put the trees in, right? I mean, it's not necessarily, we don't want to just write checks, if you will, but it's important that they put the trees in, they spend that money, we would be happy to reimburse them payment in lieu for up to 3 trees on their property.
Well, since the berm cannot be, for engineering reasons, as you've stated, cannot be 10 feet, how about we make it, you propose 4 trees per the homeowners in your agreement with them, whether trees or in lieu of. So to try and, compensate the fact that certainly a 10-foot berm was important and a requirement of the Planning Commission. So that's one way of dealing with that. In addition to that, if you are going to have trees on the berm instead of 14-foot trees, how about, let's go to 16, then we're still, we have the same compensation for the 2 feet that you've lost on the berm.
16 feet where?
I'm sorry, I want to make sure, I want to be clear, are there trees on the berm?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So essentially, right now, this is a staggered row of trees. So essentially, they're not necessarily double row, and that's of evergreens. That's these green ones here. And then the purple ones, if you will, those are deciduous trees. I don't know exactly on the top of my head what those are, but those would be deciduous. Those would be essentially, right off the right of way. We do have some complications there. There's a power line. There's also a sewer line, I believe, that runs right in that area. So we're really kind of threading the needle with what we have right now. That's why we don't have a double row. We're trying the best we can. But yeah, so we were already proposing all of these trees that you can see here, quite a number of them along the berm itself.
So with the power line, could you still go to 16 feet instead of 14?
I don't know how easy it is to get 16-foot trees, but I guess maybe I could talk to some of my consultants if they think they could fit there.
Our units are only 12 feet high. Okay? You've got a 5-foot berm and you put a 14-foot tree. You're 10 foot higher than our units.
Okay.
So
I don't know what your point is.
well, the point is we don't. this we can tell them.
Okay, thank you. So if you would put 16 feet there, I think that would be,
16-foot tall trees.
yes, to make up the difference, since we required a 10-foot berm, and you've gone down to 8 feet, and you were going to have 14 feet
Well,
of trees.
Neil, in the planning board, I don't remember you specifically saying 10 feet. I
Well,
think
it's-
it was, what was Bloomfield Chase?
Yeah, and I believe
Right.
they were 10 feet, though.
No, but in Bloomfield Chase, I think Andrea said it goes anywhere from, or Tim said, it goes anywhere from 3 feet. The majority of it can be 8 feet, and then there's some of it at 10 feet, because they're on the slope.
Right.
So, do you take the medium, or the extreme, right? And I think we found that 8 feet seemed to be the medium for the berm.
Well, no problem with the berm, I'm just talking about the plantings.
Yeah.
If I may just piggyback, Tim, what was the original plan for the front? I know the planning commission said 14 feet at time of planting from my understanding, the north and the west borders, which is part of your presentation is what you guys were doing. What was the staggered row of trees that was per your plan for the eastern Telegraph border.
And nobody can see this but me because I have the computer in front of me, but this was just a single row of 8-foot tall trees. So we have evolved here, and again, that was a 5-foot berm, which, again, I do want to point out, and I think it is a very relevant statement to say this, 5 foot is your requirement in the one-family cluster ordinance. We are going above and beyond. We're basically 50% of, over 50% of what your requirement is. So I'm trying to understand why we keep getting these comments when, I mean, this isn't related to a variance. We're meeting your ordinance, we're exceeding it, and now I feel like it's just still not good enough. And honestly, we've been doing this for over a year, and just, we keep getting this. So we started
Tim,
with
the
an
other thing you have to
8-foot
think
single.
about, and I'll encourage the board, is that these, when you plant these, especially arborvitae, they grow about a foot a year. So we have to account for growth and where that growth's gonna be. If you plant too close together, or too many, they'll die off over time. So I think with 14-foot arborvitae, is that what you're talking about now, 12?
Well, I'm talking evergreen, so
Evergreen.
spruce, Norway spruce, something like that.
Yeah, and they grow rather quickly once they take root, right?
Yes.
So if you plant an 8-foot or a 10-foot, within 2 years, it could be a foot to 2 feet higher than when you originally planted it if it's healthy and planted correctly.
Agreed.
So I have another question. Well, first of all, you didn't answer any of my questions, but I have another
happy
question.
to.
Being that we're on the berm.
Sorry, Bill, that was my
No,
fault.
that's okay. Neil had questions, that's fine. But I'm just
Yeah, we're gonna
gonna
do it.
come back to, I want my questions answered. But being that we're on the berm, let's stay with the berm. So today we got an email that had an update that said that would be the 8-foot. I understand Neil was thinking 8 to 10, but it's part of doing the 8-foot because you don't have a lot of easement there. You said you're gonna have to do some adjusting and this is at least my understanding. But in looking at the plan, there really is no more room. The front few units are so squished in close to Telegraph, sorry for my terminology. And I'm real concerned about unit 29 where the driveway, these don't have any measurements on them, and I was looking at the site plan on my computer earlier, but I've lost it. I don't even know that 29's driveway to the sidewalk, which is part of your sidewalk and safety path, is 20 feet.
It is.
And it's right near the entrance, and the 27 and unit 1, their garage, I'm sure you guys are planners, you're smart, put the driveway further from the gate, but the other half of their home, the windows, are gonna look out at this gate in front of their house. I mean, it just seems, it's too dense. It's still just too dense. There's so many different ways here, but you need to change the density somehow. It's just too,
That's your biggest problem.
Okay, excuse me, sir, we'll open up for public comment in a minute. I know everybody wants to speak, so we'll get right to it.
If I could just answer some of the questions.
Sure.
I'd meant to, sorry. So I believe we have a minimum of 23 feet. We have a 3-foot step back for the garage in relation to the front of the house. We have a 20-foot setback, and maybe he's shaking his head. So it might not look like it, but at a minimum, we have 23 feet to either the curb or to where sidewalk starts, and that's
That-
very important to us.
that was not what I was getting in my online packet, where I could see the dimensions. The dimensions to the sidewalk many times were 20 feet, or to the road. And if somebody pulls up and doesn't want to come 2 inches from the garage door, the butt end of their car is going to stick into the road, and that's a hazard. And where do all the extra on holidays and special events? Are they going to overflow into the residential neighborhood? Are they going to overflow into the temple parking lot with their permission? It's Telegraph Road. Where are excess visitors, which people are going to have visitors? Where are they going to park? And that was something that I think has not been addressed.
So again, I'll just repeat, it is 20-foot setback to either a sidewalk or to a curb.
Right, it's not 23. I read
But
the
we have a
packet.
three, well, the 20-foot is to the front of the house, and then we have a 3-foot step back.
The drawings seem to say it was 20 feet to the garage.
I'm looking at them right now. So it is 20 foot and then 23 foot to the garage. So you will have a minimum of 23. We did this intentionally, because I agree, people do have deeper cars. Now, there is a 2-car garage. They will not be using the driveway.
Well, but guests don't use that.
Exactly. So there would be two, that would be 23-foot minimum in the driveway. And I can see the plans. That's what we specifically did, because we agree exactly with what you're saying. And then there's street parking. And this is typical of any of these types of projects. We did a Bloomfield Grove. It is 27-foot wide, and parking on one side, we will put signage. No doubt we'll put signage. Typically, that's on the non-water side is where the parking is allowed. And it's never been an issue for us with parking. There would be plenty of parking. If you look at this right now, you
On
can
the
see.
non-water sides, you're saying on that center circle would be the only place you could park?
On one side, I don't know on the top of my head where the water is.
The north and west, you can park north.
So in the north and the west, you can park.
Okay, it's still very minimal parking because the units are closer.
So that's a minimum 3 per house, and then, I mean, unless everybody's having a party at the same time, then yes, there might be an issue. I guess there'd be an issue in any neighborhood.
Okay, I think we just have two more comments, and then I'd like to open it up for, and then we can always come back to Tim, okay, Martin?
So just quickly, I don't have a question, I just have a comment. It's a two-part comment, and first I want to, thank Robertson Brothers and you for the effort you've put forth on this. It's been a lot of work. You've really done a good job in being responsive in many ways, at least taking the time to listen and try to respond. I noted a little bit of exasperation in your tone a little while
It's
ago.
been a long trip.
But I must say that the trip's length has something to do with the nature of the proposal. And we've worked very hard with you on a very fast timeline, I think, to move this proposal through. Many board meetings, many processes have been involved. BPO has worked diligently with you. I think this has moved pretty fast, honestly.
I agree, I appreciate that.
Next is that there's a lot of important matters on the table, and we're going to have some public comment here.
Sure.
And I, so far, and I expect tonight that, with this really important matter, there's going to be Bloomfield level of decorum and professionalism at all times. It's been what we've always seen here, and I think we always will tonight. There's some strong thoughts and opinions about it, but we'll discuss it, work it through, and hopefully come to some place that we can all agree on.
Fair enough.
Chris?
Yeah, thank you. So I want to piggyback off of Neil. So when you guys originally came up with this plan, you were having 8-foot staggered evergreen trees in the front with an 8-foot berm, which again started at 5 foot, went to 8 foot.
It started with a single row
Single row. I'm talking
Of
about
8
the
foot.
in the front,
along the berm, right?
along the berm and
Yes.
Telegraph.
Yes. 5
So
foot.
now you have a staggered tree line with 8-foot evergreen, with an 8-foot berm. Is that correct?
Yes, plus the deciduous in front of it.
So I believe my partner here, Mr. Barnett, was pointing out that their intent or what they anticipated from the planning commission was a 10-foot berm. You provided engineering for that, of why we can't do that. We need an upsized tree in order to do that. So while we hear public comments, why don't you speak with some of your colleagues to see how we can upsize that to make that make sense?
Right.
Does that seem like a
Yeah,
reasonable
that seems
ask?
a fair request, for sure.
Then you guys can figure out what makes sense. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Tim.
of course, thank you.
Okay.
I have a few questions.
Mark, let's hold off and let's open it up to the public, if you don't mind, because I think we got a lot of energy in the room that wants to release, and then we can come back, okay? Thank you, Tim. All right, so we'll open up for public comment. I'll ask you to keep it to 3 minutes. And Amber, you'll keep track of the time. And if you'd introduce yourself, your name and your address, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Alice Wachel. I live at 1782 Maplewood Avenue. I'm president of the United Homeowners Associations of Bloomfield Township, which represents HOAs across the township. Tonight, I'm asking you to deal with two things. First, I'd like you to refuse this development, which is nowhere close to conforming with our ordinances. And second, really take a serious look at what's going on with the Zoning Board of Appeals. Let's start with the development. The variances requested simply don't meet the law. Michigan requires a real practical difficulty, but on a clean, empty parcel, there's no such difficulty. This developer could design a compliant project, they just don't want to. Every hardship is self-created, and they're trying to cram too much on the site. I think that's what Val was saying. The law says that variances must also be a minimum necessary to allow the residential reasonable use. Nothing about these are minimum. The project doubles the allowed density, exceeds the size limit for cluster housing, and chops major setbacks down. Natural feature protections are tossed aside, with buffers shrunk and tree replacement far short of the ordinance. Tim wants to know why you keep asking for more trees. It's because he hasn't met the ordinance. These aren't tweaks. These are total departures from the zoning code. And the residents who have lived here for decades, paid their taxes, and cared for the neighborhood are paying the price. Their once quiet enjoyment, once it's gone, it's gone. This development is not in the spirit of the ordinance, nor in the spirit of Bloomfield Township. Now, the big picture. The ZBA, we hear from HOA after HOA, smart, thoughtful people who know the ordinances and they bring legitimate concerns, that they're getting ignored. Meanwhile, those who ignore the codes walk away with variances. In the first 8 months of 2025, back in August, I took a quick look. The ZBA had a near-perfect approval rate, even for big deviations. This tells us the practical difficulty test is barely being applied. The ZBA is supposed to be a quasi-judicial check, not a permit counter. When it approves almost everything, especially a project of this scale, it's effectively rewriting the zoning code without going through the legislative process. And trust me, your residents have noticed. This Board of Trustees is ultimately responsible for making sure the ZBA stays within legal boundaries. When the pattern shifts from occasional reasonable relief to systematic over-approval, it falls to you to step in and, through your oversight and when necessary, change ZBA membership. Most people moved here specifically because they love the character of the township. We shouldn't be expected to sacrifice that character just because a developer wants to build something that doesn't fit the rules or a single resident breaks the rules.
Alice, excuse me, you've been past 3 minutes. I'm sorry, our clock's not working, but the timer's timing. Could you wrap it up for us,
Two
please?
sentences.
Yes, thank you.
I urge you, reject this development as proposed, uphold the ordinances, and restore accountability to the ZBA. Accountability to the law and to the people who elected you. It's time to bring back fairness, consistency, and respect for the standards that protect our community. Thank you.
Good evening, Joe Young. I live at 7190 Cathedral Drive. I was the former president of the Birmingham Farms HOA when this development came about. During the time that we worked with, I just want to say I'm in support of the development. We've had many conversations with Robertson and the people there, and as Andrea said, as Tim said, they've gone above and beyond with neighbor requests. They've had numerous conversations. They've gone and added and modified and changed everything we've taken to them. They've been great partners. Also, as a member of Temple Bethel, I do believe strongly in the security issues with that vacant land coming onto the Temple Bethel campus. So as everything has gone so far, I'm okay with the proposed plan for the development. I see no issue, and Robertson's been a great partner to have as a developer in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Members are working now?
Yeah.
Tell them why. Okay.
Okay?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Francis Martin, 7479 Cathedral. I'm also a Temple Bethel member for about 65 years. I've lived in the township in a Robertson Brother home for 51 years, and I can honestly, God, say they are phenomenal builders, at least in my house. You're not going to get a better builder. That property is going to be developed, and I don't know why the subdivision doesn't realize what a wonderful opportunity this is for them. I also can't believe that they're bending over backwards and putting trees on private property to appease people. I mean, who does that? And if you just think about it, you know, at my age, all my friends are in that area. I had a meeting with a woman today. She's just sold her house and bought a condo. That's what people are looking for, and that's the new market, and I think they did a good study on what's needed in that area. Also, think about there's 4 restaurants there, and there's a drugstore, and Trader Joe's and Nino's is also there. They're all going to get all this business. I think there's a sidewalk that runs all along that area. Also, what was I going to say? Oh, taxes. So I don't think you get taxes right now from that land, but you will now when it's sold. So you know, and houses are built there, so it's a win for us. I don't know. I just don't see a problem with this whole thing. And I live in that sub, like I said, for 51 years. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Francis. If you want to line up, we can kind of keep it moving and then have everybody in a order so we don't have this delay would help us. That'd be great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sylvia Hagan from 6934 Cedar Brook Drive. Let me begin with saying I really do love the township. I've been watching the development of the township for 80 years as I've lived here. And development's okay, but this development is not okay. I've really been disappointed with the Bloomfield Township's handling of the approval process. They don't appear to be listening to the subdivision people that are really affected by this development. I totally agree with what Val said about the density. The density is the biggest problem. And putting all those, the row of houses right behind our homes is not a good look. It's not what we have in Bloomfield, and that's not what we've had as a development. This is not in keeping with that. We have the ordinances and the master plan are there to protect the ambience and the larger habitat of the tax-paying voting residents. The township master plan should be considered without all this modification. If it needs that many appeals and that many variances, the development needs to be redone. Cluster homes, the town, they chose to do a cluster home development and then requested many variances that run around the cluster home development ordinances. And that's not right. We as longstanding members and residents are negatively impacted by this development in many ways. And I really wish we would be heard and considered with our views. The density and the clear cutting of the trees, the concentration of the units along the sides and the perimeter of our development, of our subdivision, the lack of natural, meaning nature, perimeters, which blends into the subdivision better. Lastly, I think they misrepresented their target audience. Their Bloomfield Township retirees are not going to move to a side-by-side row house without the trees and the natural. That's what they moved to Bloomfield for. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Hi, I'm Marcy Deschner, 6924 Cedar Brook. I have some redundancy, so I'm going to try to jump around a little bit to not be saying the same things. But I think why many residents are deeply concerned about the direction of this project and what's viewed as the township is heading is that there's been a lot of development. Development seems to have accelerated. There was some plans from Oakland County and for parks. We haven't seen that come to fruition. We haven't seen measures to prevent clear cutting or protect mature trees. So when you come to this development and then we go to, say, the ZBA meeting that we've all spoke to, we really did feel like we were treated unfairly there. Our comments were dismissed, again, about the trees, the traffic, and the density. And those are things that have gotten worse over time for residents like me that have lived here a long time. And they're the reasons why we lived here and love this community. So it's very troubling when the tone tends to be to favor the developer's needs and profits versus what residents really want. And it's not been easy. We've been starting to meet with Robertson here now towards the end, and it's been much better. And I'm very thankful for that, but it seems we're not there yet. There's things that still need to be addressed, the number one being density. While we generally appreciate the recent concessions, we've respectively like to request that 2 units at least, one from Cedar Brook, one from Glen Grove, be moved. I mean, there's many options, that whole corner, the southeast corner that we talked about with the large retention pond should be reconfigured. The corners in both sides could have more trees. We would like to see less use of the tree fund. We've brought that up several times. We'd like to keep the berm higher. As you have noted, some of the things that have come up already, we were very on board to have some changes made, so our voices are heard. These are long-term decisions. We live here. We're going to live here for a long time, so we don't want things to be short-sighted or pushed through. If there's anything that we can do to continue these discussions or make some concessions for how the density and the layout are, it might take a few more months in the timeline, but I think it'd be worth it long-term instead of just coming to a quick decision. So I appreciate all your thoughtful comments tonight. And if we can't do that, I mean, regrettably, I would say we have to vote no. We can't push something through with this level of density and so many comments and so many concerns. If this had gone through the normal master plan process, it would have had community input, community involvement. It would have been very transparent. That's lacking. We've been trying, we're getting there. I'd like to see some things done tonight if we could, but if not, we have to table it and we have to come back together and figure out what's best for this community. Thank you.
Don Elder, 7145 Glen Grove. I want to echo some of the things that Marcy was just saying about the timeline and rushing this through so quickly. I want to talk about density, though. Been to 2 design board meetings, 1 planning commission, 1 wetlands board, zoning board of appeals. At every meeting, virtually every member of each board expressed concern over density with the project. I'm going to quote some things from the design board meeting. The density is too high, doesn't fit our zoning requirements, the proposal's inappropriate, we're trying to put a square peg in a round hole, doesn't fit the township development plan, doesn't fit the aesthetics of Bloomfield Township. We need more green space. You submitted your plan under single-family residential cluster option, but didn't cluster. Too many variances. Those are quotes from the design board. I also want to talk briefly about variances. Every unit has a left side, right side, and front setback. In addition, there's corner yard setbacks and natural feature setbacks, a total of over 130 variances for 35 units. For a reference point, the villas at Bloomfield Grove had 18 variances for 42 units. One of the front yard setbacks on the original plan was 13.5 feet. As Val mentioned, you can't park a sport utility in that area. Also want to address noise. Telegraph has 70,000 vehicles per day. Proposed development has nearly 500 trees they're going to remove. Many of these are over 100 feet tall. These trees provide a natural year-round barrier, noise from Telegraph. Even with the trees, we have too much noise in our neighborhood. The current proposal is eliminate all the trees and use an 8-foot berm. I drove up and down Telegraph from Hickory Grove to 14th Mile, north and south. The berm at Hickory Ridge is over 15 feet. The berm at Bloomfield Chase, I measured with a laser. It's 13 feet. Not necessarily at the peak. I know it's lower at the north and the south, but it's 13 feet with trees that are 10 to 30 feet above that. The berm at the Hills of Lone Pine, which is right back here, just over our shoulder, that's over 30 feet. Partly because we have an elevation change up where we are down to that low area. The berm at Willoway Estates, over there, is 20 feet. The Glens apartment complex, which is right across the street from the proposed development, has a 12-foot brick wall. I know we've been talking berms, and an 8-foot berm isn't going to reduce noise substantially because of the elevation change. The Planning Commission, on July 7th, said that item 6, all berms must be at least as high as Bloomfield Chase development. I'm hoping between Tim and you guys, we can have a discussion about what to do with that berm. We definitely have to have it. Maybe 8 or 10 feet is the top, but there's sound-absorbing materials you can put out there that would help this. Maybe similar to Bloomfield Chase, they've got some rocks in there that allows a steeper incline. I think it would help security for that project. I think it would reduce noise. It could be aesthetically nice, and it could be cost-effective. Might reduce their costs. We've been talking with them, and we're helping. Tim's been very helpful, but if you could carry that discussion on, that would help. Appreciate that very much.
Thank you. If someone could silence their phone, we'd appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, is that what it is?
That's us.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Stephen Tarnowski. I am the president of Temple Bethel Board of Trustees. I'm a resident of West Bloomfield Township, but Temple Bethel is my spiritual home. I believe we've been good neighbors we've been here for 175 years. Well, in Michigan, we've been at this site for less than that, but I think since we've been at this site, we've been very good neighbors. We want to continue to be good neighbors. I think the plan as currently proposed is a good one. From our perspective, I'll speak from Temple Bethel's perspective. As already mentioned, I mean, financially, it's obviously a benefit to us. The land that's currently there, the vacant land, and also part of our property is not really used. So it's in our interest financially, but also, as mentioned, from security perspective, I think this is going to be a significant improvement to our site's security. And lastly, I think it could potentially provide homes for some of our congregants. I think it would be an ideal location for many of them. So again, we're in full support of this, and I'm hopeful that it will be approved tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nick Petrucci. I live at 6998 Sandalwood Drive in Birmingham Farms. I just want to echo all the previously made statements in opposition. I firmly oppose the plan presented today, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Effie Steele, you all know me, 1387 Club Drive. We've spoken about all of this. I've spoken with everyone in this field of vision here. Quite a few people over here attended every meeting, and yet here we are today. And I had no idea that Alice had written what she wrote, but was I a better writer, I would have written what Alice wrote. And I would have repeated exactly what Valerie said. So I sent a public comment in to you guys. And I asked, do we not have a master plan? Do we not have a new strategic plan? Why, yes, we do. I know this because I contributed to the latter. All of the above decision-making bodies, especially the zoning board, are supposed to uphold our ordinances, protect the health of our citizens, and protect the green and blue spaces, which are so precious and fast disappearing. We will not be the gem that we have been for long at the rate they are going. If people who are supposed to represent us have become desensitized by the developers and fear of right-to-build litigation, then they should not be a part of the process. We should be making new selections. So tonight, we are still facing what we asked the developer on day one. And the gentleman who responded to me is in the room right there. We said, well, nice development, but we'd like it further away from our homes. We're hearing 55. By the time the balconies are there, they're really only 35 feet away. So we're wordsmithing there. Decrease the density of 3 to 1 next to our homes was the second request. We need a much bigger double buffer of green space between the neighborhood and the development, which at the time were 1 row of arborvitae short. Number 4, we have flooding concerns, especially on Glen Grove. I got a response. I'm going to quote, I am changing nothing unless the township makes us. So here we are today facing the same issues. An overly dense development, which is too close to the neighborhood homes. The developer has amicably agreed to plant more trees, but it's not enough. So you guys are going to have to come in and fill in some of the other spaces if you approve this development. And I will come into the office and show you pictures where you will need to do that, if you need to do that. And let's not forget that we're losing 13 and a half acres of green space. As beautiful as it is, why was the pond not reduced so the developer could allow more green space for the neighbors? We were already going to lose all our trees.
Excuse me, you're at
Okay,
3 minutes.
all
If you
right.
could wrap it up, we'd appreciate
I
it.
will. I'm on my last 2 sentences.
The units should comply with the 35-foot spacing in between units, have 40-foot setbacks from the street, and have a road which is wide enough for emergency vehicles. We keep being told to trust the process by you guys. You are the last deciding body. You are elected officials. We thank you for all your attention because you have met with all of us and helped guide us so far during this very sad process. But it is time now to do the right thing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Steve Weiner, 4339 Spruce Hill Lane. I live about, I don't know, a couple drivers and a 3-wood to the west on a good day. I am also a member of Temple Bethel and former president, and I've been working with Robertson Brothers on this transaction for a couple of years. I give them a lot of credit. I understand the natural inclination of folks to say not in my backyard, but this has gone through an incredibly detailed process. You've had several meetings, several hearings, lots of good, healthy debate. I'm impressed with the process, and I've been in the real estate business for 42 years. This has not been poorly managed and well managed by the township, so kudos to the township. I think that the township consultants have independently reviewed the data, and they're paid to be independent. And the independent assessment has been that this doesn't have the impacts that people are concerned about regarding flooding. Traffic, the traffic's going on Telegraph, so the traffic doesn't impact the neighbors because there's no road connection with the neighbors. And the flooding analysis I thought was pretty thorough. And we walk our dog in Birmingham Farms all the time, and you can see the culverts are all black. They need to be cleared. It's unfortunate, but that's the fact. Regarding the parallel plan, they could go build the 38 lots now, pretty much without a whole lot of arguments, but it wouldn't be product that people would want. And it's difficult to understand if you're not in the real estate business that there are property rights. People have property rights to cut down trees. They have property rights to build on their property. And so 38 lots is what they could do, but I think their plan is a whole lot better at the size that they're proposing of the product that they're proposing. And it's unfortunate that the number of variances that Carol Rosati and the team had to go through, but the fact of the matter is that the ordinances are unfortunately, they haven't kept up, and that's not a slam on the township. Just the fact is in most communities, the residential ordinances have not kept up with the changes in market demand. And that's true here as well, and so that drives a lot of these variances, and that's unfortunate. And, you know, if it was a perfect world, then your variances wouldn't be required because the ordinances would be tuned in, but they're not. So, finally, as a member of Temple, unfortunately, you know, we talk about housing for congregants, and that would be wonderful. We talk about the financial benefit, but the reality is the security issue is a big deal. We're a big target. We're an easy target to see, and you don't have to go very far in this wonderful community of Detroit to find people who would like to harm us. And so we'd like to have that protection to the north. It would make a big difference for us, and I'd like you to think hard about that for your vote tonight. Thank you kindly for your time.
Thank you, Steve.
Good evening, I'm Joan Dunbar, and I live at 7196 Glengrove Drive. I think I have sent emails to each and every one of you, and I have also sent emails to the public comments. So I'm not going to reiterate everything that's in those emails. I'm not going to follow on what everybody else has already told you. The people of the subdivision, the majority of the people in the subdivision, and I'd say everybody who is living adjacent to this development, is against this proposal, and I'd like you to reconsider and continue the discussion, because I do think that we need to come to a compromise rather than allow this to go through as it currently stands. Thank you very much.
My name is Bill Fry. I live at 6883 Cedar Brook. I've lived there for 48 years. I think the property that we're talking about should be developed. I'm with that. But I think particularly Ms. Murray is really tuned into what is needed. We have far too many units proposed to fill up this small space. And I think it should be cut in half, or perhaps 20, 25 units, and we'd have a lot of those problems that we're talking about would be solved. Well, I really think you ought to listen to that, because everybody, especially the ones who are adjacent to the proposed property, are going to lose value in their property. And I think no matter what you do, what you approve of, you ought to approve of a plan that will enhance the value of the properties, that will allow people to enjoy their homes more. Valerie, I think you were the only one that was really tuned into what the residents are thinking here. Develop the property, but please do it in a way that enhances it. I'm not familiar with the 20 feet, but my car is probably 18 feet long. So I'd have to pull in within about 2 feet of your homes. And again, parking on the streets. I agree with everything that the people from the subdivision have been saying, but I do think it's a good idea to develop the property, but with much less density.
My name is Raga Saifuldin, 6956 Cedar Brook. That's about 5 houses down from Telegraph. So I'm one of the people directly affected. I strongly object to the proposal as it is. And to be frank, they were approved for 38 and now they're offering 35. So if the pedal hits the road or the tires hit the road, are they going to be building 38 or 35? I have a lot of suspicions and a lot of questions brought up by the zoning board, this whole process. But I want you to know, besides myself, I'm going to be directly impacted, the front line as it were. I have neighbors of mine on Cedar Brook. They're already actively looking to sell their home because of this development, because of whatever, 6 months up to 2 years of construction, the noise, the trees, everything, all that, the whole 9 yards. They're already doing it, and they spent lots of money in the last 6 or 7, 8 years improving their home, making it beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful houses on the street. And because of this, they're moving out. I mean, they're actually putting their money where their mouth is. They're actually going to put up a sign soon. So please have that in consideration. I'm one of a few people on Cedar Brook, and then the other road that's on the other side of this the proposed development, that's a lot of impact. That's a lot of sadness, upset, quality of life, and think twice about what you're doing. You got to weigh a lot of stuff, I know, for the whole city, the tax base and improvement and all this stuff, besides the concerns of the people, the trees, the birds, the air, everything. You have a lot to juggle, but please don't undervalue the impact that it'll have on people like myself. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Ann Weiner. I live at 4339 Spruce Hill Lane, about a mile from Temple Bethel. I am on the executive committee of the Board of Trustees of Temple Bethel. And I think our biggest issue is really security. And I want the people in this room who are opposed to this project to think about the fact that if we, God forbid, have a really terrible incident, anti-Semitic incident at Temple Bethel, what that will do to their property value in that community, and who will want to really live that close to Temple. So I think that the people who are opposed to it should think about how badly we need more security at our temple. Thank you.
No.
Hi, my name is Aman Dillon. I'm 7127 Glen Grove. After listening to all the discussions tonight, I feel that there are too many issues with the project. The current proposed tonight, I think we should table the as is submitted with the density and everything. Thank you.
Okay. Any further comment? Okay. If you'd line up, please, so we don't have the delay, because we got a lot of people
Sorry about
talking, and
that.
we're going to keep moving here, if you don't
Good evening,
mind.
my name's Tad Creer, 4274 Curie Lane. I've been a resident of Bloomfield Township for over 35 years. Also served on the Planning Commission for a couple years, and I'm also a land planner, landscape architect, and I've worked with Robertson for years with their developments. But I just want to point something out. Probably about 10 years ago, my in-laws were getting to that point where they're aging, and we wanted to get them closer to us here in the township. And we couldn't find anything. They live in a quad level with lots of stairs, a big lot over an acre. They wanted to downsize, they didn't want the maintenance, they wanted to be closer to their grandkids, they wanted to be closer to us, we wanted them closer. We couldn't find this kind of product in the township, it just wasn't available, at least at that time. So I think it's really important that you consider that and provide for this. The other thing I want to say is professional land planner, licensed landscape architect. All my years, over 35 years of doing land development, land planning, I've never seen a development on a major thoroughfare, 70,000 cars, whatever the number is, with this kind of density. It's just never, I've never worked on a project like that just because of the nature of the traffic and whatnot. I think this is a very fair proposal. I understand there's impact to the neighbors, but if we really look at it from a holistic standpoint and land use and the corridor itself and the traffic, this is a very, very fair proposal. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Ligia Galizia, 7408 Cathedral Drive. I'm in the Birmingham Farms community. I oppose to the project as it is due to the density, to the lack of green spaces, and I tend to agree to most of the people who live in the subdivision and are going to suffer with the lack of what we have now. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jasmine Sidhu. I live 7127 Glen Grove. I'm the one who's going to be affected by this project, but I'm not going to say much. You know, everybody repeated. I'm not going to repeat myself. Dense is too dense. So you have to, before approving, you have to look into all those scenarios, what you guys can do. So as it is submitted, so I'm opposing this.
Good evening, Peter Paulin, 7431 Cathedral Drive in the Birmingham Farm subdivision. Unfortunately, I was born a cynic. This isn't about variances, density, noise, wetlands, because we've gone through all that. They've made adjustments. It was said tonight that this is not in my backyard. And I understand that. I do. It is inconvenient to have a construction project that will probably last a number of years in your backyard. But that's not a reason not to approve it. I have found that the Robertson Development, they have listened, they have worked with us. I want to thank them for the drainage study that was sent to the HOA. I don't know if the HOA president, the new president, distributed that to everyone. But a lot of the drainage issues in the neighborhood boil down to lack of maintenance of the residents and not cleaning out their culverts and water backing up. So again, sorry to be a cynic, but I think if it was about the variances and whatnot, the same people in this room would be at the meetings for all the other developments because they're fighting the ordinances, not about the project in their backyard. So I enjoyed working and talking with Tim and his group because they've been very productive. I approve this project and hope it goes through. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, I'll close public comment and open it up to the board for more questions. And Mark, I believe we left off with you.
Yes, had a since it's a gated community, I wanted to ask about snow removal. This past weekend, I was on Telegraph Road, and in a non-gated community, there was a snowplow truck backing up onto Telegraph Road to plow. And I was sitting at the light, and I'm thinking to myself, is that guy going to move before the traffic crosses 15 Mile Road? And you have a gate there right in front. And for me, that's a big deal because it doesn't seem to be enough room to fit a significantly sized truck and get through that gate and get around the gate and move the snow through the gate without causing a significant traffic hazard.
So how are you going to handle the snow removal?
Yeah, that's a great question, Trustee and Callie, through the supervisor. There will be an HOA, and the HOA, typically with these types of buyers, is very vigilant about doing maintenance, including landscaping and snow removal. Your question specifically, I think, is about the gate and the room along that. The gate actually will be open during the day. In fact, it may be open during the night. That was a decision we allowed Village of Bloomfield Grove to make. So the gate won't be closed during the day, and they can set the time of if they do close it, when that would open. So it really wouldn't be an issue as far as getting through the gate during snow removal. All of the geometrics of that entrance, including the turnaround, bless you, the turnaround has been sized for fire trucks and solid waste, and for obviously snow removal trucks as well. So we went through that exercise. We worked through that with, in fact, the engineering department reviewers also review that as well. So I'm looking at Brad, and he's nodding. All those things were already addressed when we designed this, but the gate really shouldn't be an issue because of the fact that it will be open up, at least during the days, could be the entire time. It's going to be up to the homeowners if they did close it at night. Did that answer the question?
Not really, because you plow all during the day, and typically the plows come out at night. Even in my community, I live in a condo community, and the plows are typically at night. And if that's when the security needs to be highest, yes, there is less traffic. And sometimes during the day, when the crews come out, that's going to be a problem and an issue. And coming down that hill, if you don't see it, there's going to be accidents. For me, with that shorter drive and the higher density, that is a concern. I also have a question on the berm. If the density was reduced, could you build a larger berm?
With wholesale changes to the plan, sure. I mean, at some point, this is the plan that we've brought to the township for consideration and for review. And this is what we're hopefully tonight either approving or denying, I guess, is what I'm saying. So, yes, obviously, revising the entire plan would be different. We could also come in with different product as well. So I don't want to speak about hypotheticals because I don't know, but generally speaking, yes. I mean, if you had half the density, I guess that's true. But, from a density perspective, I still don't understand that because we're, I think, at 2.73 units per acre. Even the neighborhood, the entire neighborhood behind us is 2.25. It's not like we're here and we're doubling density over what's out there. So I'm still trying to understand what number is the number that density makes sense, because we're basically what the density is around us.
Okay. I walked the property during the summer, and you had mentioned you did a water table study?
We did some test pits.
Test pits, okay. So when I walked the property around 16, 17, 15, where that cul-de-sac is, that's where I noticed the most water, not at the front end and the wet area. So why would we build a water retention pond in an area that is not the lowest part of the land?
Yeah. Okay, so the water table is different than the wetlands. There are wetlands on both corners. That is correct. There is a wetland here that we're saving actually behind Unit 17. Predominantly, that wetland will be saved. But this really is the low point. Everything, and I think I showed you, maybe I didn't get to this slide. I don't think I got to the slide. This slide shows really where all the drainage comes. You can see everything's coming from the north west to the southeast. So this is the lowest point. This is the lowest point here. It's engineering. This is what our engineer designs it to. It's reviewed by the township. To put it anywhere else, you'd have to punt. Yes, the southwest corner is low too, but it's not as low as that area there.
And is it lower than the drainage in the middle of the Temple Bethel parking lot?
Temple Bethel is actually, I believe, lower than us, because everything still comes south. You can see those arrows there. So yes, it continues south. What happens is everything will be captured into our storm pond and then released into the storm drain along Telegraph Road.
So that would go into the Temple Bethel parking lot where the storm drain is in the center?
No, it would go straight out into Telegraph. There's a pipe that goes straight to Telegraph, basically adjacent to where the storm pond is.
Okay, because the last thing I want is the kids having flooding in that area in the parking lot and the kids and the
Right.
elderly slipping and falling.
I agree. In fact, this actually would be better because right now it has nowhere to release to. There's no relief to the water that's right now in the wetlands there. So I think Temple Bethel probably does experience flooding. He's nodding his head, Steve. It is experiencing flooding. That will actually reduce with this because it'll capture in that wetland pond and then be released into the townships, into Telegraph storm pond, our storm pipe.
And I also went through the drainage study for the community off of Glen Grove.
Yes.
What I thought was unusual was the blockage is occurring upstream. It's not occurring downstream. And the complaints for the flooding in the basements are not from the residents that are upstream, they're from the ones downstream. Now, if you're blocking the flow, that means there should be less water accumulating at the bottom of the hill, and it takes more time to get there. So if it takes more time to get there, why are they having problems with flooding at the bottom of the hill?
I don't want to necessarily speak for Brad. I don't know if you want to come up and explain it. I think there are issues everywhere, but you're right, there are issues to the north as well. The basements specifically would be a different scenario. That'd be with a high water table. So you want to speak to the other ones?
Hi, good evening. Brad Brickle, Noack and Frels Engineers. Yeah, I mean, that drainage issue occurs throughout the entire subdivision, upstream and downstream. What we found was because of the sedimentation that would fill in the ditches over time, you'll see in a lot of the pictures we provide in that report, a lot of the culverts were, some of them fully, covered. And what would happen is that would drain, it would keep building up and it keeps pouring over different drive approaches. And then what happens when you get to the end of the block, so more toward the south, that's where everything pools, okay? So because it's not going through these drainage structures, it keeps gaining momentum, increases the amount of volume, and then it hits at the end, and that's where it's flooding over those roads. Because the last sewer, that is essentially the relief, right? Everything, gets picked up at the low end of these sites, of that subdivision. Number one, they don't meet capacity to the newest standards, okay? They were designed at a time where we weren't seeing as intense rainfalls as we're seeing now, okay? And what I mean by that is you're seeing a lot more rain come down at a quicker, shorter duration, okay? That's the big problem. So by reditching, putting in culverts and things like that, that would definitely help. But ultimately, you have to revise the reconnection at the outlet point, and hence why we do detention systems. That doesn't have a detention system. If it had a detention system, it would help alleviate that. But that's a separate issue from the basements, okay? A lot of the basements, the reason that's occurring is because of the water table that everybody's referring to here. For instance, the way this site is being designed is standard practice nowadays is you want to keep these bottom of the basements out of the water table, okay? So what we've done in this site is we've kept everything 1 foot to 2 foot above that water table that they've gone out and done test pits. We've recorded the water elevations over a year period. We did them initially, and then we've done them more recently in the spring when we know when it's the seasonal water table at the highest. And so what had occurred back when things were developed at this time, drainage on these basins wasn't something that was looked at as much as it is now. They were built probably below the water table so that they're having all these problems, these infiltrations. You start getting cracks in foundation, water's gonna force itself through the cracks in the walls and things like that. So those are two different scenarios, I would say, as far as the problems. And I don't know if I answered that for you.
Well, yes, you did, but you also contradicted a previous statement, which was the new development is going to be below the properties on Glen Grove.
Oh, yeah, no, so, I mean, I can't recall, we're 60 feet or so lower from the very northwest as it falls down. So this property, the water table falls with kind of with the land, okay? So there's the water table established throughout. Where we're at, we are significantly lower than everything around it. So we are still lower. You know, nothing, if let's say, God forbid, there was flooding and all this occurred and all these detention or drainage systems that are designed to a certain rain event, all that got exceeded. It's not gonna ever back up from this site and go north and go west. Everything is gonna go out to Telegraph. That's where everything falls. So if you did have an overland overload flood where, you know, the detention system or detention basin that's 25% over capacity, that for a 100-year storm event, you know, if all those things happened, it would still drain, and that's what part of the requirement we have and what the HRC has with reviewing our plans is ensuring we have proper overland overflow. It's not just pipe design. It's where are we, if God forbid there's a flood, where is that going to occur at and who's it going to affect? And it's very clear that it's not going to be any of the residential neighbors to the north and to the west.
So you're going to build a Robertson-style home, which has, and they're beautiful homes. Don't get me wrong. If you want a company to come in and build homes in a community, you definitely want a company like Robertson. However, when we're talking about water tables, and one is above and below the other, and we're talking about where the one is higher or lower than the other, it does not make a lot of sense that a newer home built with higher ceilings in the basement and above a water table is going to be lower than a home that's built within the water table, as was stated, and right next to it. That just, to me, doesn't make sense.
Well, it's because we're substantially lower and that water table is lower where we are. So I'm only talking the elevation of our basements with respect to the actual water table at our location. The water table isn't the same throughout. And then the other thing that we do is we put in order to help with the water table, what we find, and we had the experts here previously, by putting in, you know, all the underground drainage systems around the basements, putting in the storm depths. We put the storm sewers in a little bit deeper so that over time they will dewater slowly. We put in all these rear yard structures, everything in the roads, we put in under drain systems. All that naturally will lower that water table. So where we find a high water table in instances like this is because that water isn't going anywhere right now. Okay, it's just sitting there, hence why you get the type of wetlands you have. So when you develop it and put in all these piping systems, the water's gonna find that sand seam, okay? So one way or another, you put in a pipe, that water's gonna gravitate toward those easier conveyance systems, right? It's gonna force itself into those situations. And then that's all gonna lead to a detention pond that then gravity drains out into the road right away. So you're taking something that never drains anywhere and giving it the mechanism to allow that to drain over time.
We had a similar situation in Legacy Hills, and we received the same comments from the engineering community, yet the flooding got worse. The water is higher on the north side. It was very contentious between the two communities. And the people that I do know that live there, it's still not solved. It still hasn't gotten better.
How long ago was that,
I
would
think
you
that
say?
that's a different developer. I think M1 Homes developed that about 4 or 5 years ago.
But I will say
And
that the county has adopted new stormwater standards trying to
I have
address
not
that.
heard the same about Legacy Hills, and I do have friends that live there. I've heard of some ponding in 1 or 2 areas, but nothing of any leaking into a home or a basement.
There was negotiations between the township and them, and attorneys were involved, so.
When it was developed?
Pardon?
As it was developed.
This was after the development, and there were also problems with.
Are you aware of any of that, Neil?
There were also problems
There were
with
some
porches.
issues, there's some issues that came up about 4 or 5 years ago, and there was some settlements, there were some agreements, and there was some concerns, but it was taken care of. And it was certainly was a different developer.
It-
Did it relate to decks? Was it about decks?
It had to do with,
It was decks. It was decks. It was decks in the going to
patios.
Yeah, patios weren't supposed to be there, correct? And it was more or less having to do with that more than water getting into the house. But it was resolved.
This is not about water into the house, it's about the drainage, the flooding patterns, and when you have this, our township engineers have a good reputation, but we still don't understand why. And the individuals that are suffering on the north side of Legacy Hills, they don't have solutions. And that water level hasn't gone down. I drive by there. I have friends in that community.
yeah, I agree with Mark. I walked that property when it came to the board a few years ago. Michael, do you remember, Martin, what year that was? But it came to the board because.
Yeah, but I don't recall anything about water problems. It was
I don't
deck
either.
locations,
I don't either.
encroachments.
There
I heard
were,
of some
there
pond-
were
what
decks
was
and
it?
patios added, which they
So-
felt was
And
adding
I'm
to
not
the
sure how it really relates to
lack
this.
of water.
'cause
But
I'm not
it
sure how
was
it really
affecting
relates to
the
this.
The
but-
reason why it
Go ahead,
relates
Mark.
is we did receive favorable feedback from individuals with good reputations, and it did not happen as it was planned. There was flooding there before, there was water problems before, and my concern is it's going to happen again.
Yeah, only thing I can offer is that, based on our topographic survey, based on all the water studies that we put a lot of time and effort and specialize in, the basic thing from all this is we're substantially lower than the development to the north and directly to the west of us. And that pond is at the low end of the site. So as we know, when water backs up, whenever it does, it finds its equilibrium. It's gonna overflow at the lowest point of the site. And the lowest point of the site is where we put the detention pond. So it'll overflow into the road right away at that location. We have overlay and overflow requirements, riprap and all that in case it ever did. But that is substantially lower than anywhere to the north or to the west of us. And that's just,
Can that pond be made smaller, or, as I suggested, push it back into that corner, which would allow them to ease some of the density?
yeah, so the challenge, we absolutely could make the pond smaller if the wetland requirements, we had to mitigate a certain amount of wetland disturbance. So that dictates the size. So in that pond, we had to create a scenario where East Wander was acceptable of the type of plantings. And in order to do the type of plantings, you only can have a certain amount of water. And so that area was driven by the wetland mitigation.
Okay, any other questions for Tim?
Yeah, so, Tim, did you convey with your partners about what we're gonna talk about, those trees in the berm?
Yeah, it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, 10-foot was the preference. And if we're at 8-foot, and we have 8-foot trees there, I think we're willing to go to 10-foot. I don't know if that appeases the board, but that would make sense to make up for the additional 2 feet. We're willing to do that.
10-foot
Yes.
berm or 10-foot tree?
We can't do the 10-foot berm, it'd be an 8-foot berm with 10-foot trees along that.
Which would allow an 18-foot separation, and what is the average size height of your home? I believe Mr. Robertson said it, but what is the average size height
The
of those?
midpoint, I believe, is around 20 to 21 feet.
So pretty close to almost not being able to see at all the structure.
Yes, yeah, for sure. And the other thing I do want to point out, and I just wanted to say this, I know it kind of came up, at least on a couple of the speakers, as far as the sound right now, we did have a sound, it wasn't a sound study, but we had a sound letter, and I think I provided that to the board, at least I provided to staff. Really, the trees don't provide any kind of sound mitigation whatsoever. In fact, the fact that they're taller, it actually might, and the fact they're deciduous, it actually brings some of that volume down. By putting in new trees that are, lower and more robust, if you will, and more of them, not to mention the homes. The homes act as a very good sound buffer. So those are things that I don't know if we've conveyed properly, but, even our sound letter had said, it's certainly going to be the same or likely better, the fact that we have these homes in there and the trees in there. So from a sound perspective, additional foot or two on the berm, what we're doing is going to be a lot better than what the berm is. So I wanted to point that out. Now, if it's aesthetics, which I think that's certainly something that I'm hearing is important, we're willing to upsize that for an aesthetic perspective. But from a noise perspective, I think just the fact that the houses will be there will cut off a lot of that sound as well.
I guess I did want to, I apologize. If you did ask a question about the distance from the gate to the roadway. And so, you know, based on, I mean, it's hard for me to read, but you're around like 60 to 70 feet you have from the back of curb on Telegraph to the gate. So there's ample room for a vehicle to pull into there and be parked and not be backed or sitting in traffic and whatnot. And then also with regards to, I wanted to, I guess, give a little more clarity on the driveways, if that's all right. So I'm not sure if the site plan is a part of this packet or the presentation, but essentially, if you look on units, yeah, so from units 1 through, let's see, 1 through, let's call it at least 17, just for ease. So there are no sidewalks on that side of the road.
Right.
So the dimension that you're referring to, you're absolutely accurate. It's a 20-foot dimension we show on the plan. And what that is, that's from the face of the house to the easement line. Let's call it the right-of-way line for all sakes and purposes. And so that road's it's a 60-foot right-of-way. You have a 27-foot road. So essentially you have like a 16.5-foot from back of curb to that right-of-way line. So if you take that 16.5 plus the 20-foot setback, you actually have a 36-foot driveway to the front of the house. And as Tim mentioned.
From the center line you're talking about?
No, from the back of curb.
From this point right here.
Yeah, page 190 in our packet will show that.
It might be helpful, I mean, we could speak to it, but no.
I'm
So,
looking at it, that's why.
Michael, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. Tim, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I didn't hear in the audio. When did you first approach the township with this idea, this plan? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was certainly in 2024. I actually have some dates here, which I think I didn't get to. So we first met with the neighborhood at our design center back in September of 2024. So we had some initial conversations with the township even before that.
Before that.
But, you know, again, really, it wasn't, we didn't start making changes to it until we met with the neighbors back in September. So it's been a year and a half.
Right, so, because I remember seeing it sometime last summer.
Yes.
The idea, the first version. And then I looked it up that the first public meeting was the Design Review Board, which was June 18th of this year.
Yes.
Do you have that up there?
Yes.
June 18th.
Yeah, so
Okay.
this basically says we've met with the neighbors twice before we even had got to the point of submitting. And then we even had a couple meetings with the HOA and then the Design Review Board.
Right. So the neighbors were aware, the township was aware.
Yes.
There was talk, discussion, give and take, and then we began the process with the formal submission sometime presumably in April, when it went through the
That
process
sounds right.
in our planning department, where
Correct.
our fire marshal took a look at it, as well as our engineers, our wetlands consultant, all that, before it finally came to the Design Review Board on June 18th, and that started the public process. And then the Planning Commission, I believe, was in August, right?
That's my next slide.
Oh, there you
Yes.
go. Okay, the
Planning
July.
Commission was July.
Wetlands was August, okay. And then it finally went to ZBA in September. So, I guess the point that I'm making is that this was hardly rushed. This has been well over a year in discussion.
Yes.
And it's gone through a public process that's lasted 6 months. And throughout that process, you've referred to something called the parallel plan. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Sure, yeah, I don't have the slide in here, but I know I've shown it before. So what we showed, basically parallel plan for us is design it according to what the ordinance allows. So we took the, basically a one-family cluster under the R1, current R1 zoning district, and we applied what the code allows for that. It really is written more for attached product. So we were able to show 38 attached homes on there. We could actually fit more, but we had, of course, the other defining density requirement as far as you're allowed a certain density from 160 feet, I think, and then another density beyond that. So that would kind of limited us to what I'd say 38 homes. But we created this parallel plan that showed 38 attached homes that met all of the setback and dimensional variations. But again, what we want to build is the detached. So that is really where a lot of those variances were derived, if that's where you're
Right, well,
getting to.
it's been thrown around, and I just want to make sure that we address it for the record, that there is another option.
Yes.
And that other option would comply with the zoning ordinance, would be an attached product, not a detached product.
That's correct.
And you would be able, as the property owner, be able to build by right. Is that correct?
Yes, we'd have to go through the site plan approval process.
Right, but there
yes.
wouldn't be variances, there wouldn't be.
That's correct.
You know, and that it would comply with everything.
Yes.
I guess I just want to bring it to the attention of the board that there is this alternative for an attached product, would be 38, so it'd be the same, it would be higher density than what's being proposed tonight. I just wanted to address that, so.
Anything else, Michael?
No, that's, I mean, I have other comments, but I'm let other
Okay.
people have their questions asked.
One of my questions that I didn't ask yet was on page 137 to 38, we're talking about the trees. It talks about 82 trees are off the property but are counted towards the 95 you need to replace. Can somebody explain what
That
we're
was
saying
one of the
there?
variances that we were granted, and again, we did get all of the variances, you know, the setbacks and the landscape tree replacement variances approved through the board of the ZBA. But that was one of them. Technically, I think you have to have all the trees on site to count. This is essentially on the Temple's property, but they wanted to have a certain setback to their from their parking lot. So we wanted to grant them the ability to do that, but still have trees in there and be able to count them, the trees we're putting in. Functionally, it's just a technicality because, you know, that land we could have purchased from the Temple as well, but they wanted to have that buffer from the point of the parking lot for security purposes. So that was one of the variances that was granted.
Okay, because I sat through the,
If I can just clarify that one.
Sure.
Just to clarify, so the request at the beginning was that even though Robertson Brothers couldn't meet the letter of the law in terms of replacing the caliper, even though they're adding additional trees to the Temple property, we cannot count those trees on the Temple property to be counted towards the Enclave. So the point being made, and I think what Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, is there are additional trees that they're planting on the Temple property that are not being calculated towards the Enclave property because they're on different.
what it says on page 137, it says 82, quote, off-property trees will count towards the 95 replacement. That sounds to me like not right. I don't understand it. I mean, if you
Okay.
can explain it, that'd be
Okay,
great.
let me take a look at the ZBA.
Okay, and Tim, I asked a bunch of questions early on, and things like, can we move the pond? Can we move that driveway? Because that would allow you to ease some of the density that is what we keep hearing about.
Yeah, so we did look at that, because that did come up late in the game, when we heard about that. MDOT will not allow a 90-degree turn there. It's not a possibility to be able to ask them to have another connection there. So we've looked at it, and again, the Temple is not willing to basically deviate from that connection there. But it's also dangerous to have a 90-degree turn there as well.
I mean, you don't have to have a 90-degree. You could do that exact same slope, but move it, I don't have measurements on here because there's no measurements, it's just a picture. Move it 100 feet or whatever it takes, you know, south of there, and so you wouldn't have to come in at the very rear
right
of the
here?
property. But you could, further down. You could start it, no, further down. I want that corner for that.
So that's a 90-degree.
Start it there, but then slope it down. I mean, why would it have to come in at the very, very back of the parking lot? It just needs parking lot access, right? You could still slope it in terms of the safety, and if you are putting in the same type of driveway and closing the other curb cut, MDOT shouldn't have a problem because you're not creating a new one, you're just relocating it. I think that would, it's kind of a silly
Jim, you
cut
wanna
the
come up
corner
here?
because of a driveway. And it would give you more property for the pond, you could space out the houses a little better. Aesthetically, I think it would be an improvement to your plan if the temple, was amenable to that.
You want to introduce yourself?
Jim Clark, 6905 Telegraph Road. The temple, it took us 2 years before we came to you to get the purchase agreements all squared away with the relative parties. This is all they will sell us. And the temple's here and they can speak. They will not, it's a great idea, but we have to work with what it is we're able to buy. And we have a contract to buy exactly what we're showing you, and we're not in a position where we can go back. It is well-intentioned and it is wonderful of an idea as it is, and I'm not saying it isn't. We're not in a position to do that and go through the MDOT process and go back with the two sellers we have, because they both said they're done with us time-wise. They want to know what's going on here. We've been at it. I know it seems quickly, but we were at a process before this process, and this is all they'll sell. So I think we have to take a look at what we have as it relates to that one issue and deal with what we have, because we don't have the rights to buy anymore. And you can speak with the temple also.
Okay, any other questions for Tim or Andrea?
Oh, sure.
There was a variance granted for that to replace the caliper. I'm reading the Michael J. Dula report. Landscape.
That's the setback. There was an offsite on two.
I sat through that whole ZBA meeting, I was here, and I don't remember any discussion about it. It's just, I sat silently in the back, I didn't want to butt in, but I don't remember hearing anything about that. Or we never heard about the parking one side of the street or any of that, which seems like things should have been talked about sooner than tonight.
That, the parking is not a variance. It's, I think, typical for this type of development, so that is something that is allowed by fire. So that would not come up in the ZBA.
It's just a concern to me that a one entrance, congested, closed environment for seniors, and it has very limited street parking and very short driveways. That's just my own personal concern. I'm not a designer. I don't do landscape architecture, but this is just for my own
I'm
concerns.
hoping Brad was able to discuss enough of the driveways. At a minimum, I mean, some of them are 35 feet, so they're not. At a very minimum, they're 23, just in certain areas where there's the sidewalk. So we were very conscious of having enough depth for the driveway as well. So I'm hoping I made that clear.
I think Martin has a comment or question.
Sure.
I'm going to start with a couple comments again. So first, it's mentioned that a question about parks, and of course, parks are something we think about often. The community thinks about it. Members of this board think about it. Temple Bethel has an interest in selling their property for a development for legitimate security reasons, which have been enunciated and are very important, and I think. And I give a lot of weight to that. So it's not going to be a park, and as much as others might want it that way because there are legitimate security concerns and the owners of the property get to make those types of decisions. Trees, the tree ordinance is currently under review, by the way, so people have asked about that. The tree ordinance is being reviewed. The engineering and other departments within the township are working really hard at that. You might hear something more from us in February. I do hear a lot of people say, represent us or residents want. And I think it's really important to note, in this instance, the petitioner, Robertson Brothers, is a resident. We're listening to what residents want on both sides of this issue. Owners and principals of Robertson Brothers live in the township and have lived in the township, and their concerns are as legitimate as everybody else's. Now, the people who live there, have had quiet enjoyment of this property for a very long time. But it's ultimately not their property, and it has to be, and it can be sold. I have, after having said all that, from 2 meetings at the DRB, that I've expressed some serious concerns about the proposal. And 2 things I want to point out. One, often you guys cite the developments up the road are comparable. And I just don't see it that way. I didn't see it that way at DRB, I don't see it that way now. Most of those were developed before the current ordinances were in place. They're designed very differently, and not really compatible with what you're presenting here. They're not really apples and apples. The parallel plan, I mean, Michael made a mention of that it's interesting to have a parallel plan, but it's not also, it's not compliant. As I've seen it, it's adds it all up again, mixes the number to come to your desired number. But the key part about what was in the ordinance is that the back half of the development has to have no more than 1.7 homes per acre. That's the key part, the transition. Now, all that ZBA stuff's water under the bridge. That's done. We don't have anything to say about that today. Those variances have been granted, so it's a cluster option. But we're here to talk about the site plan review, and that's 42.6.1. And that grants us a lot of discretion to decide how best to make this work. And that's the nature of these questions. It isn't try to throw a curveball or add more things or whatever else, but to try to work through this process. And this is the first time the board's had a chance to do that. The DRB is just advisory, and you heard many of the concerns there that you're hearing today, but the plan is still the plan that you're proceeding with. The Planning Commission is advisory. They don't get to decide or say no. The ZBA has spoken, and it's made a decision, and we're moving on from that. But right here under the site plan development, it's pretty clear. The board here is able to make such requirements with respect to any matters that will ensure, for instance, the satisfactory and harmonious relations between the development of the site and blah, 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 prospective development of contiguous land and adjacent neighbors. And I think that's the point of many of these questions is, are we getting to the point where we have a satisfactory and harmonious relationship with respect to the requirements that the plan is presented in the existing adjacent neighborhoods? So on that point, the berm, for instance, I mean, is it, I'm not sure why people talk about berms, but in my opinion, they're talking about berms because it's noise. They're concerned about noise. The berm would potentially, and the trees would deflect more noise. And as far as the density, I think that the concern I hear when people talk about density is the disruption. I mean, how many houses am I backed up against? How many patios are there? How many people are in their back patio having little cocktails and parties? How much noise does that generate? Some of that absolutely is to be expected. You guys can build a development there. One specific suggestion I want to make with regard to that is this, which is if I count the number of homes that are on the existing neighborhood, I get 14. And if I count the number of homes you're putting in along the same line, I get 17. I would propose that you make the two numbers the same. And that would, in my mind, achieve the satisfactory and harmonious relationships between this neighborhood and the next one. The next question, so that's my proposal to consider, I threw out there. The other is, so the decks. The setback line you've talked about, I believe is from the house to the property line, is that right?
Sorry? Which setbacks?
The setback from, between the homes and between the backyard and the property
So
line.
the rear, yes, it's setback to the house is 55 feet.
Is there a regulation in the site plan about the size of decks that can be built?
I don't believe so.
So they could be,
Oh, well, we're proposing to have from basically that furthest point, a 15-foot deck. So we're stipulating that it can't be any closer than 40 feet to the property line for a deck.
so that would be a second suggestion I have for us, which is that the deck size be regulated too. I don't want to come, that's Legacy Hills. I don't want to come back here and have, huge decks that people are adding on later after the project's completed and you guys are gone and they're building these, decks that get farther and closer to the property line next door.
Can I make a statement on that?
Sure, please.
So we'll have a master deed that will be established. They can only own up to that point. They cannot add to anything. They don't, and I guess that's something I haven't really said about this project. these aren't backyards, so it's not like a single-family house where you can have a playground or a swimming pool. They essentially own the box, so they own their house and that's it. And then the area behind it where the deck, they also own, that's called limited common element area. They're only allowed to do certain things. There is no way that they could expand past that. The township won't allow that.
Yeah, so a lesson I learned from Legacy Hills is that when the builder knew that, but when they turned it over to the HOA somehow didn't know that. And when homeowners petitioned to make their decks bigger, or not just do decks but do patios, they all seemed to forget that rule. And they built them before coming here, and hence the neighbors were mad, Legacy Hills, it just didn't work. So I'd really like some clarity there in this, with regard to the decks, so that if and when this is built and is passed on, it's very clear and it's in the site plan.
If you have a stipulation of 40-foot line from the deck to the property line, we'd have no issue with that.
Thank you. That is all I have right now, but just to go back and review the deck, some sort of site plan delineation about how far the deck has to be set back. And then also, if we were, the specific request I'd have is that with regard to the density along the north and the west side, that those match the density of the development next door.
So from our perspective, obviously, this is the plan that we're proposing tonight, and it's obviously come a long way from even when we came to you with the DRB. And we did obviously lose the 3 units at the ZBA, and not only lost the 3 units, we incorporated, 50% larger side setbacks or building separation. So I know we went through that exercise, went through the ZBA and lost those 3 units, and this is what the plan that we are hoping we could have resolution to tonight. I counted it before, and I think there's actually 15 along here, and I would argue that there's only really 16 backing, because 17 really backs more probably at least to the corner or to the parking lot. I've done the math. I have counted it. I guess my only thought on that, to be honest, Mr. Trustee, is that this is a single-family neighborhood that we back to. We are a different type of use. We're a cluster. We have access to Telegraph Road. We are not a single-family neighborhood, and we're not trying to be. We think we're a transitional use, and we are a cluster. So to match up exactly to that, I don't believe that really is, I think, the intent of the cluster ordinance, but really the fact that we're not trying to mimic them. It's a single-family neighborhood. It's just different. You have different uses against other uses all the time. It's called transition. And to match it exactly, I think we've gone as far as we're willing to go in regard to the number of units specifically back into the other one. So we're one off, maybe count it 2, but from our perspective, it's not the same. It's not apples to apples. This is a cluster with a single access off Telegraph Road. It's a different project. If it was apartments, there'd be a lot more apartments adjacent to the north and the west. So we think this is a very good transitional use.
Thank you, Tim. Any other comments or questions from the board?
I've
Thank you.
got
Yeah, Mark?
questions for Andrea. Oh, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. When we set the hearing 2 weeks ago, you'd mentioned that there were no neighboring properties that had front yard setbacks on 14 Mile or Telegraph.
It was in regards to the provision of the lot split ordinance, where you're talking about having your lot that you're creating to be singularly built on. So for a lot split, when you're creating a single lot to be developed, you have to meet an averaging of lots within 500 feet. In this instance, because they fall under the provision of Section 18-229 of the cluster, of the lot split ordinance, division does not include a property transfer between two or more adjacent parcels if the property taken from one parcel is added to an adjacent parcel. So therefore, it doesn't have to meet that criteria of the fronting averaging and the fronting width, because it is a transfer between, you're not creating a sole buildable lot, which is the intention of that lot split provision, is to make sure that that single lot that you're creating to be built upon meets the average area of what's around it. That's how we verify that it's comparable to the adjacent layout, like in a residential neighborhood. In this instance, the action of this property change is different than that of a lot split, based specifically on that section of the lot split ordinance, because it's a property transfer between two or more adjacent parcels. If the property taken from one parcel is added to an adjacent parcel, okay? So this is like, if you will, an exception to that provision, because our ordinance allows for this type to occur without having to meet that criteria of a lot split.
Okay. Thank you for that comment. And then I've got a question for Martin, based on the safety, especially for the Temple Bethel residents. Would the Temple Bethel residents be safer if there was a fire station next to it?
It wouldn't meet the qualifications for what we need if you're talking about Station 3.
Yeah.
They have to be located at Maple and Telegraph. They can't move maybe a couple hundred yards to be accredited for what we have to cover the community.
Okay. So, and what's the procedure for reaccrediting?
I'll have John Leroy respond to you so it can be very specific.
But
we
it
discussed
could be.
that because, no, it can't, because we did have an offer for some property further up the road at Telegraph that
Okay.
it didn't work
Okay.
with where they need to be. You know, we're set up in quadrants within the community.
Okay.
Anything else, Mark? If not,
I have one more.
sure, go ahead, Bill.
I understand that the temple says they don't want to move that driveway. I asked about that last week, and what I was told was that, well, we talked about that early on, and nobody wants to do that. In looking at this plan and hearing how much I've heard from residents, being a 40-year resident myself, how I would feel if somebody put multiple units uptight behind my backyard, I don't see why it's not worth considering. Not like what you said, make a right turn in the parking lot. I understand Telegraph very well. I understand this driveway and it's a lovely driveway. You just shift it 50, 100, whatever, I don't know that, there's no markings on this map. Move it down to line up with the Temple's property line where you're doing your lot split, and allow that pond, whether you can make it smaller or you just have to keep it that size because that's what you require, push it back into that corner. It would allow more space for trees, more green space for the residents. It could take a little bit of the tightness off of the development. I think it would be better. And I don't think moving one driveway is a huge concession. That's just my personal feeling.
Okay, any other comments? Andrea, let me ask you a question. This property is zoned R1 in our master plan right now,
Correct.
correct? And if, what Tim said, if he wanted to develop it as is, he could do 38 connected condominium homes on that property without any approvals from the ZBA. He'd just have to go through the regular site plan, right?
If he allotted to do the attached units in the front and then the lower density in the rear for that,
Right.
want to make that qualification.
Right. So he had to come to us because they want to do individual homes versus connected homes. And that's really what we're arguing about. And
I would
asking for
agree
the
with that
ZBA.
statement.
Right. So I think this is a good development. I think this is good for our community. This is a property that has sat there, has been undeveloped, has been tried to be developed, but hasn't been successful. I took Oakland County Parks, the director, Chris Ward, there back in February with Michael and Chris, and I forget who else was with us, and we filmed it, and we looked at the property. They were not interested in the property. Also, Temple Bethel wouldn't sell it to a parks or give it up to a park because of the security issue. And so that I'd want to address that. And Francis, you mentioned about a tax base. I don't think we've ever heard that conversation, and nor should we ever entertain that in any development we do, is for additional taxes. We're a very strong community, and we should welcome good quality developers, as Robertson Brothers is. They're very good quality. We're very fortunate to have them to do this, because they'll see it through. And we saw in Bloomfield Park what a mess that was years ago, and how it ended up in litigation and fought over it. And unfortunately, in the society we live in today, I don't have to tell anybody this, there's a lot of threats. And it's disappointing that we have to live that way. But yet here we have a nice opportunity to put in, and I agree with the Robertson Brothers. And I've talked to some people that they would welcome this type of a home because they're looking for something where they can drop their clothes and their belongings and visit with their family and not have to worry about anything. We have a development at the corner of South Boulevard and Squirrel Road called the Noble. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I encourage you to go look at it. Michael Finari's doing it. It's beautiful. It's, I think, what are they, 3-bedroom, 2-bath condos for rent, right?
Yeah, they're 2-bedroom with like a flex room.
2-car
option.
garage, 2-car garage. He's sold out.
Yeah, and those are slab on grade with no basement.
Slab on grade, no basement, and they're rented, and I think they started at $3,500 a month for rent, and he sold them out. I think this will go rather quickly because of, as Mark said, the quality of the reputation that Robertson Brothers has. So I get the fact that you don't want to see this green space be given up, but this is a nice quality development that's going to have more green space added to it with plantings and then some people. I've lived in a community like this. I bought in a community like this similar. What's nice about the roads being tighter like this, it slows traffic down quite a bit. And it may not be designed that way, but it does. And it's so for safety purposes. I currently live in a condo association in town here that is much smaller than this, that almost mimics this, because Mark was talking about the snow plow, or if you have guests over, it does work. It is a little bit tight, but it does work. My driveway at my house is probably 20 feet at the most, I bet, or maybe 25 feet. And if somebody pulls in one of those extended Suburbans, you know, they have nowhere to go. You can't even get it in our garage. So if they build a garage, I just hope you build it big enough to put in a Suburban or a pickup truck, because that's frustrating. Okay, but we did listen to everybody here. We met with you multiple times, and I appreciate what everybody said. We're still getting emails about it today, and we'll respond to your emails. But I do think this is a good development for what has been proposed in the past and what that property sits with today. So I would like at this point to entertain a motion.
Yeah, I was going to make a statement, but I couldn't say anything better than you said, Mike, because I do agree with you. And this is a piece of property that's been empty for as long as I've lived out here, and it's been a long time and longer. And I think it's a great use. There's a buyer who has property rights. It's not a piece of property for a park, as Mike had stated. Park Commission's not interested in it, nor would I like to see a park on Telegraph Road anyway. But this is the buyer, and this is the plan that's before us. And actually, people have listened. You may not feel that way because maybe you're not getting exactly what you want all the time, but the developer has listened to you. We have listened to you, and there's been some compromise. And there's certainly much more green space than is currently there in some respects, because it's going to be there year-round, as opposed to in the winter, you have trees with no leaves. So I think it will be helpful also in reducing the concern about the noise and safety, and it's certainly very important to Temple Bethel. It's a good project that they could sell and at the same time increase their security. And they've already had incidents there, which everybody is aware of. And I think it's very important that we do something that's beneficial to the community, is beneficial to Temple Bethel, and is at the same time, if it's maybe not 100% harmonious to the surrounding neighborhood, I do agree with you, Tim. It's very much a transitional type of project. We've had issues in the past with so-called harmonious projects up next to the Johnson Nature Center, and that resulted in potential litigation, which we had to come up with some creative ways of avoiding the litigation. So I think this is a good project, and certainly, I think, listen to the board, and I would like to make a motion on, first of all, I know there's 3 motions, correct?
2.
2? Okay, so first, let's do the lot split. So I'll make a motion that the lot split approval for Temple Bethel to convey 4.23 acres from the Temple Bethel property to the vacant properties immediately north of Temple Bethel to result in a single 12.91 acre parcel for the Enclave single-family residential development.
Support.
Support? Okay, and then we'll ask the clerk do a roll call vote.
Mr. Barnett?
Yes.
Ms. Murray?
No.
Mr. Antocli?
No.
Mr. Kalinsky?
Yes.
Treasurer Shostak?
Yes.
Clerk Brook, yes. Supervisor McCready?
Yes, yes. So it's 5-2? Passes 5-2.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And can we have a motion on item B?
Now I think we need the amended site plan on Temple Bethel.
Oh, I guess there was 3.
So there would be 3 then?
Yeah, it's going to be 3 if
Okay.
those got split up.
Okay.
Okay.
So would this be, item number 2, if I'm looking at this correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission, it's recommended that the Township Board consider under what conditions as amended site plan approval may be granted for Temple Bethel subject to the compliance with the requirements of the Township departments, compliance with the requirements of the Township's landscape architect.
Very good.
Support.
Support? Martin? Can you do a roll call vote?
Sure. Mr. Barnett?
Yes.
Ms. Murray?
No.
Mr. Antocli?
No.
Mr. Kalinsky?
Yes.
Treasurer Shostak?
Yes.
Clerk Brook, yes. Supervisor McCready?
Yes. So that passes 5-2. And then final,
Okay. So, based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission and the Board's review of the one-family cluster option proposal as submitted, it is recommended that the Township Board consider under what conditions site plan approval may be granted by the Township Board for the Enclave development, subject to, so there'll be some changes in here. So we have compliance with the requirements of Township departments, compliance with requirements of the Township's landscape architect, compliance with requirements of the Township's traffic engineer, compliance with requirements of the Township's environmental consultant, seeking approval and permits from the Michigan Department of Transportation for work on the Telegraph Road right-of-way, payment to the Township Woodland Trust Fund for deficient tree replacement, conditions of the August 4th, 2025 Wetland Board, and in addition to that, as we discussed, that the trees on the berm will be 10 feet. And as Martin had recommended, which I agree, because we don't want to go through Legacy Hills and the issues that we had there, that the decks have a 40-foot stipulation from the deck to the property line, as agreed to.
Do we need to add that the berm is 8 feet?
Yes, and the berm being 8 feet. Thank you.
Okay, just making sure.
okay.
Support.
Support?
Can we get some discussion for a second?
Yeah, sure, Michael.
Okay, I just want to say a couple final things, and there may be other members who want to as well. So this has been a process that's lasted well over a year. We've had a lot of public input. We've had a lot of public meetings. And we come to the board for the final site plan approval, and we've heard a lot tonight about density. And I wanted to make the point, I didn't get to say it earlier, but for better or worse, we're not the decider of that. The decider of that is the Zoning Board of Appeals. And they are a quasi-judicial board that makes that decision. In fact, if the developer or anyone wanted to appeal that, they wouldn't appeal it to us. It would go directly to the Circuit Court of Oakland County. We are not in that chain of command, if you will. And so that decision has already been made. The developer now, property owner now has the right to develop at whatever the density is, 2 point whatever. And so we can't, in my view, we cannot use that to make our decision tonight, because that decision has already been made. So we may not like it, but that decision has already been made. And it's now our responsibility on behalf of the entire township to respect the fact that we have a property owner who has a right to develop. And I don't think that there's enough here that it's passed all of our inspections, it's not inspections, approvals in terms of the fire marshal, approvals of the engineers, the wetlands consultant, all of our planning building folks. And so we have the obligation to reflect that they have gone through all the hoops and they have the right to develop. So I take that obligation seriously, and so that's why I'm voting the way that I am, even if we might not like where the density came out.
Okay, can we take a roll call vote?
Mr. Barnett?
Yes.
Ms. Marie?
No.
Mr. Antocli?
No.
Mr. Kalinsky?
Yes.
Trustee Shostak? I'm sorry. Treasurer Shostak?
Okay, now I hear it. Yes.
Clerk Brooke? No. Supervisor McCready?
Yes. Passes 4-3. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, good luck. All right, item number 5, consider reappointments to the Planning Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals. Presented, Andrea Bibby, you're back.
I'm
Welcome
back. Hi,
Okay.
everybody. How's everybody doing? Guess we'll wait a second for the room to clear out.
Hey, Neil. Thanks for having me.
I'll take the go-ahead from the supervisor when he's ready.
Okay, you ready, Andrea?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm before you this evening with the request for the consideration by the board this evening. We have some terms that are expiring on our Zoning Board of Appeals. And we have since had an opportunity to pull those soon-to-be expired appointed positions. And we have received favorable interest on behalf of, this is for our Zoning Board of Appeals, Ed Ford. He is seeking another term. Andrea O'Donnell, who serves on our ZBA, is seeking another term. And then also our alternate, Glenda Mead. The request would be for consideration of the board to reappoint on a 3-year term, which would expire in January 2029. And then I do want to note that we will have a vacancy for an alternate position on our ZBA as Bob Taylor, who has so graciously served on the zoning board for many, many years as a regular member, and then came back as an alternate, is now seeking to retire, if you will, from his duties from the zoning board. So we will be eventually looking to fill that vacancy. But the first request before you this evening would be consideration to reappoint for a 3-year term expiring January 1st, 2029 for Ed Ford, Andrea O'Donnell, and alternate Glenda Meads to our Zoning Board of Appeals. And then, and I don't know how you guys want to do this, I can continue for the Planning Commission? Okay. And then, in addition, for our Planning Commission, they serve as the recommending board. They review all the applications such as commercial site plans, zoning ordinance amendments, residential developments, master plan updates, and then serve forward on their recommendations to the Township Board. And there we have 3 members who are also seeking to continue their service on the Planning Commission for a 3-year term expiring January 1st, 2029. That would include Richard Atto, our trustee Neil Barnett, and Dr. Tom Patanga are all seeking to continue their service on the Planning Commission. So those are the two considerations. I do want to note that we do have two other boards. That includes the Construction Code Board of Appeals, even though they very, very, very rarely meet. And then we also have the Electrical Examining Appeals Board. And at this time, there are no appointments that are due to be renewed on those two boards. So this evening, I'm looking for your input and consideration as it relates to these reappointments.
Thank you, Andrea. Any comments or questions for Andrea?
When are we gonna post for the alternate?
That is something definitely I can work with the supervisor's office on, and we can look forward to getting posted for that, absolutely.
Just because we've had a lot of people have spirited discussion about wanting to get involved, this gives people an opportunity to then be part of it and be a part of the change if they want to hear it. So this gives them great opportunity since they just talked about it.
There will be, I'm sure there'll be information on our website in terms of how somebody, an interested party, would be able to apply.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Andrea.
Were these posted or not because the person sitting in the seat's gonna continue?
These are asking for reappointments, okay?
Okay.
So we didn't repost for reappointments. We reached out to our current standing members and asked them if they were interested in being reappointed.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't know, how, when there are people around the, in the township that would like to get involved in these boards, do we just keep reappointing until they feel they're done? Or is that, because, like election, we could be out every 4 years.
Me being newer at the helm of PBO, I'm interested and more than welcome to hear input and feedback regarding those considerations. I know there has been some discussion about, I know the clerk and I have had some discussions in terms of wanting to get more people involved around the township and maybe tap into some different groups of people. On a separate point, I'm looking forward to the master plan update, which I know I keep bringing up, but that's going to be a great opportunity for residents across the township to really, truly get involved and really have some public input opportunity. And really, at that time, would be a great time to really maybe reach out and kind of expand our horizons a little bit.
Yeah, because I know it's, some of these are thankless jobs and people work hard to take these positions but on the other side of it is we're having some contentious issues and residents are questioning, so to keep putting the same people in over and over and over again, at what point do we consider, somebody new? It just.
Well, Ed Ford, I believe this is his second term. Okay, so he's relatively new. I believe this is Andrew O'Donnell's second term. And then alternate Glenda Mead, she's been an alternate and she's only called upon as needed. And then, so I'm just responding in terms of their service so far. And then, yes, some of our planning commissioners have been appointed have served multiple terms. But again, I'm open to any future consideration or discussion on how we may want to take a different look at maybe getting some different board members in those positions. I'm certainly open to that.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
One quick comment is that these are really important bodies, and people who are on these things work really hard, and the body of work, the volume of work, the body of work they do is incredible. Planning Commission too, is even Neil, especially Neil, who knows so much and offers so much to the Planning Commission over a long period of time. So thank you for your service on these bodies. I do want to say, however, with the ZBA, the decision with regard to the Enclave was not one I would have made if I were on the ZBA, but as Treasurer Shostak pointed out, it's none of our business. But it is our business about reappointments. And I have that one reservation on that one issue. But the body of work and the volume of work and their dedication to this task far outweighs my concern in that category, and I wholeheartedly support their reappointment.
Okay, was that a motion?
That's a motion.
Support?
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed, so 6-1. Thank you. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 6. Martin?
You'll see behind tab 6, for item 6, as Supervisor McCready said, is the schedule of regular board meetings for, as we're proposing it for next year.
Any comments or questions?
It continues with a 6:30 start, second and fourth Mondays.
I think this is great. Again, as we get closer to the budget time, obviously we'll have another special study session in there, but I think this will be great.
Yes, these are regular meetings, and of course, there may be, we can call special sessions as required or needed.
No, looks good.
Do we need to make a
Thank you.
motion?
Need a motion, or just showing us?
Need a motion.
Oh, I will make a motion that we approve the.
Support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 7-0.
I knew I was gonna,
Great,
I did it the
okay.
right way, huh?
So now we'll consider entering into a closed session as follows. Item A, pursuant to MCL 15.268 for the purpose of strategy and negotiation connected with negotiations and collective bargaining agreements. And B, pursuant to MCL 526A to discuss material exempt from discussion or disclosure by state and federal statutes, specifically an attorney-client privilege written legal opinion. Any comments or?
Roll call, we'll
Do a
do
roll call
a
vote.
Mr. Antocli,
Yes.
Mr. Kalinsky.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, Chris was the second.
Okay, good. So go ahead.
Treasurer Shostak?
Yes.
Clerk Brooke, yes. Ms. Murray?
Yes.
Trustee
Yes.
Barnett? Thank you. That passes 7-0.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
and you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. And then we'll come back right afterward.
One, to address a FOIA appeal. Two, to address the police patrol union and the command, three, the command union, and four, DPW union.
Yes.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So now let's go with the
So the
Michael?
FOIA was first?
FOIA.
Yes, I list that one first, didn't I?
Okay.
I move to authorize the township clerk to deny the FOIA appeal dated December 1, 2025, in the form recommended by the township attorney.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Thank you. Michael?
Okay, thank you. Pursuant to our conversation in closed session, I move that we approve the collective bargaining agreement with the Bloomfield Township Police Officers Labor Council for the contract years January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2028.
Support.
Subject to final legal review. Thank you.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Michael?
Okay, thank you. Pursuant to our conversation in closed session, I move that we approve the collective bargaining agreement with the Bloomfield Township Police Department Command Officers, POLC, for contract term of January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2028, subject to final legal review of the language.
Support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Thank you. Michael?
Okay, and lastly, pursuant to our conversation in closed session, I move that we approve the collective bargaining agreement with the Governmental Employees Labor Council, Bloomfield Township DPW Maintenance Employees, for a contract term of January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2028, subject to final legal review.
Support.
Support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Thank you. Thank you.
You too.
Okay, item.
30th.
30th.
7A1, we'll call it. Mark, you had taken off the consent agenda, approve payroll and vouchers.
Yes, I did. I went back and I took, I
Are
keep
these all the
making the
same?
same, yeah, they're all the same. So I took a look at the audit versus the quarterly reports to identify where the shortfall is. And, you know, I do want to vote yes on the payroll and vouchers, but if we're not going to accurately or include the transfers, then I can't, because we don't know where the funds are.
So is your question that you want to see the transfers in the payroll and vouchers?
No, what I'm showing here is we do have a shortfall in public safety and we don't report it. And we don't show the transfers going from the general fund to public safety in the quarterly reports. It's just not there, yet it appears in the audit. And if you look at what happened last year, If you look at the general fund balance, where we would be at, you'd be at minus 9 million, 9.4 million, and the township board should know that if that's the situation. We do approve the internal fund transfers, and that is an expense, and it should appear on those quarterly reports.
Where, I'm sorry, where do you see 9.4 million?
So
Oh,
I-
here it is, down here, December 31st, general fund balance, revenue, less expenses, and transfers out. So you're saying that there's a $9.4 million shortfall in the general fund?
That is, yes. Not on the, if we record the transfers on December 31st, and then you have enough fund balance to cover that, you have 6.7 million left. That was in December. So the board should be notified if those, when those funds are being used and where we're at. And we aren't. Right now, public safety at the end of September was at over 16 million deficit. That means we should have had a $2 million transfer showing on the expense side from the general fund because we only approved the internal fund transfers. We never approved a repayment plan. And we even don't have a, we haven't even assigned funds where we could go back and check things out. So that's my,
Okay.
so. If you have any.
I would ask
Just
that-
for clarity, I mean, there isn't an actual shortfall of any funds. There's not like we're running a deficit or taking out a loan from anybody. The funds are there. It's the, you just want the accounting that shown to the board, so that you can see it on paper. And that's not in the payroll and vouchers, it's just like in the quarterly report, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, the quarterly reports do not show the transfers to have a, don't properly show the transfers the way we do in the audit. And we should be doing that under the Uniform Budget and Accounting Act.
No, the audit requires it at the end of the year, but on an ongoing basis, you know,
That's
no,
part of
we
the
don't.
Uniform Budget and Accounting Act. And it is included in that act.
I disagree that it's a legal question, but we certainly could if it's an optional thing that we could provide more information than required. And so, I mean.
You have to
but
follow
let's- how about
GAAP for the.
How about?
Either you are or you're not. Either you're debiting the account and following the Uniform Chart of Accounts requirements for credits and debits, or you're not in the quarterly report filing. I mean, it's not just once a year in the
These
audit.
are accounting funds, they're not bank accounts.
Correct. And the fund balances should include those transfers. It is an expense to the general fund. It doesn't go
Well,
away.
Okay.
I mean, and I don't need an answer on this today. I'm just letting you know. Okay?
I appreciate that,
Let's
actually,
take it
thank
back
you.
and,
Yeah, we'll accept it.
I move
All right,
we
thank you.
approve the payroll and vouchers as presented.
Support?
Support.
All in
Support.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, 6-1.
I
And
make
that-
a motion that we adjourn. I get to do it again?
All in favor, say aye. Aye. There you go, boom.
Oh, support.
Oh, two.
Martin was.
Thank you, everybody. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. See you.